For you, I hope you don't feel it's setting you up too much, but having done my research on you now, I feel reasonably confident I can say all this and it be okay. What?
No, I'm waiting for the heat you're about to give me. You're about to diss me hard, right?
He thinks I'm gonna so now we're recording, so now I can talk to the audience. He thinks we're gonna diss him? No, that's not how we do intros. We do intros. We do intros like this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to this edition of the Halcyon Show. I'm once again ill, but luckily we're not relying on this old man's energy. Instead, we're going to tap into the energy of a new generation of creative talent, because on this edition, we're going to be looking not to the past or the present, but to the future as we welcome a battle rapper and a musician who's taking his first steps into the foray of his career and yet has been heralded as a potential star of the genre right at the time the scene is waiting to explode. What he lacks in age, he makes up for in a polished and confident persona, a ruthless delivery, and a style befitting that of a future headliner, and a man who one day you'll be Googling, finding this interview and going, man, so that's how he got started. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the pending powerhouse, the waiting in the wings, wunderkin, and a future phenom. It's DubTee.
What's popping? Fire, let's go.
I always tell people, I always come on with a decent intro and they never believe me until it drops, and then they're like, he's right, I'm the fucking man. And it's like, okay, there we go. Now they're on my page. All right, cool. How are you keeping? How are you dealing with this lovely, cool summer's evening we're dealing with right now?
Summer's come late, hasn't it? Like, it hasn't been this hot all year. This is ridiculous. This isn't fun. You can't go out. Yeah, I hate this shit, to be honest.
Fucking sucks. So if you're watching this in a couple of months' time, look back at fondness of the heat, because in the same way we're all going to be like fucking freezing now. So anyways, we're dealing with that, so you'll have to forgive us if we have to take the occasional sip of water or just jump into a pool of it, but we'll manage. So this is an interesting one, because usually when I talk to battle rappers or I talk to people about their careers, we're largely retrospective. We're largely looking back at a career that was and being melancholy. Here, we have a prime opportunity to speak to someone who in years to come is probably, based on what everyone's saying about you, going to be looking at as, this is now one of the guys. So tell me, first of all, how does that feel? How does it feel that I don't like using the phrase newcomer, but you're relatively new to the scene, and yet people are already touting you as, like, this guy, you need to keep an eye on him. How does that feel?
Well, it's a privilege for one. But I also think it's not something that I didn't think could be possible because of how long I've been watching battle rap. It's not something that I'm completely new to. Like, I feel like for a long time in the scene, people were jumping in that had no idea what battle rap was. Whereas I've been watching battle rap since a very young age, so I understand the ins and outs of it a little bit better than a lot of people did, I feel like. So of course it's a privilege to be appreciated by the scene, even 2 battles in. But it's not something that I've been completely blown away by, because I am confident in my own ability, I suppose. Yeah.
I know it's hard to talk about complimentation of people that you look up to, or you maybe you look at and you go, really, me, Briggsy, Trubs, Bizzo, and a few others to name have all. And I've seen them. I've gone through your thing today, and I've also gone through your mentions, and I've gone through people citing you, and it's all people going, hey man, keep an eye on this kid. This kid's got something. And then having watched the Battle versus Dojo, one of the things that came across is, and I hope you don't mind, but this is probably going to be a common thread, your age, okay? It was only because he mentioned it that I'm like, wait, really? Like, your style has much more of a, I don't want to say mature, but like I said, this polished, confident demeanor that exceeds your years. Where does that come from? Where did you first start cultivating a style that would be perfectly at home in and amongst veteran battle rappers? Where did that come from?
I think it comes from watching said veteran battle rappers, to be honest. I think maybe outside of battle rap, I'm maybe less mature, but in a battle rap ring, I'm so focused on my content and my material, just because of the similar guys I've been watching since I was such a young kid. So like people like Tony D, whose style is so focused and intricate. Me watching him growing up and me thinking that is so dope. I want to be similar to that. I want to have that level of focus, that level of intricacy, and be able to put things together how he does, as opposed to something that is less focused, for example. Yeah, I think my style is um it comes from watching so many different battle rappers, both American and English. It's all one big melting pot of my influences, I suppose.
Which is fair enough, but again, it goes deeper than that. Again, I'm leaning on the performance of DubTee of Dojo to a large degree, because that performance for me, even with the stumble and recovery in the third, what I saw was a commanding presence of not only the people in the room, because you hyped them up as well. That was another thing that most rappers they forget. Like, right, the audience isn't here to care about you. You're supposed to give them a reason to care. First things first, you're like, right, I know I'm a newcomer here. I know I'm trying to win over some people. So how's about I show that you care that you care? Come on, let's fucking go, everybody. Right, first thing. Second
Yeah,
thing, the presence to remember that you're not just to your opponent, you go to the audience at home and you're
yeah.
welcoming them in. Are you saying though that this is something that you've just observed and you've cultivated? Because that doesn't look conscious to me. That looks more of a natural thing that you've kind of eased into rather than something that you're conscious of. Based on that demeanor, your demeanor is very focused and very directed in a way that doesn't suggest that it's been forced or that it's something that you're conscious of while you're doing it.
Yeah, but I think that even could be just a combination of me watching a lot of battle raps over the years. So it's just part of my subconscious now, where I know what I have to do to be successful. So it's just something that I've picked up. I mean, I am a confident person naturally, and I think you can find that in various different parts of my life. But specifically in battle rap, all of the people who I enjoy watching all have a very confident, focused style. So the Tony D's, the Yunans, the Big K's, the Pat Stays of the world, the Hollows, people like that. They're all very focused, confident, and I enjoy that. That's the things I enjoy the most in battle rap. So it's just become part of my subconscious to do things that maybe I think, well, maybe that they would have done that. But it's like you say, it's not always a conscious thing. So when I first got to my dojo battle, I didn't think, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna hype the crowd up. It was just something that I did just just off my own cuff, I suppose.
You felt it in the moment, and you felt it like, do you know
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
I'm a
exactly.
command this a little bit. Yeah.
Because the thing you don't see in that battle is behind the camera, you only see sort of what's behind us, and there is a circle of people in that room, and it's like, okay, I need to get these people on my side very quickly, because if I don't and I have a flat round, you're going to be able to really know that I've had a flat round. Because it's a pit, you can't get away with not having a good round in a pit. You know, you can see it on camera. Sometimes on a stage, you can think, okay, maybe the crowd are just sleeping. It's very difficult to get away with it in a pit. So it's just something that in the moment I thought, okay, yes, I need to and talk to the crowd, talk to the camera. Yeah, I did it against in my most recent battle. It's not out yet, but I did it against RX Southside, where I spoke to the audience a lot and I was performing more. Yeah,
And that shows in the, like I say, this demeanor of yours that kind of, and again, I'm sorry because it sounds like an insult, but you
it's not, I
are
know.
so well defined for someone so young and so new to the scene. So I guess what I want to bring it back to then, let's before we get too ahead of ourselves, we all have that first time memory of battle rap where we're like, so what's this then? And we watch it, and there's a part of us that maybe doesn't quite get it, or maybe is a bit out of the loop because a lot of the battle rap is references, it's insider terms, it's a very niche genre of entertainment. But there's something about it that just captivates us, and then we've got the hook. What was yours?
Yeah.
What was your like either introduction or the moment that you like? What's this? Like, what was that moment?
Um, See, I had a different moment where I discovered battle rap and when I realized I enjoyed battle rap. So the first battle I ever saw, and most people won't even know this battle because no views, no one knows it. It was Mr. Ree versus Frequent Thought on Don't Flop. Such a random battle to watch first.
You are missing out on a prime opportunity to go. So yeah, my favorite, the battle I first saw was Shotty Horror versus Arsenal,
No,
and
no,
I
no,
was
no, no,
bit
no,
from
no,
the jump. Like,
no, 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 no. I watched that and thought, yeah, this isn't very good. And then I didn't watch battle rap for like a year. And then I remember I watched the first battle I really enjoyed was Shotty versus Tony. I watched that and I thought, yeah, this is good. I enjoy this because I was a big rap fan, and that to me that was two very skilled rappers performing against each other, and I was hooked from that point on. So that was the first battle I enjoyed, but it definitely wasn't the first battle I saw.
Again another fabulous jump off point, because again that was do you know what, man, that's a battle that you watch in retrospect, and you need to give Tony D more credit than he really got in that battle, because man, yeah, go to Manchester and battle Shotty Horror. Fucking hell. What? Like, I get he was the champ, but at the same time, man, you gotta know, man, you walking into a place where people are looking for reasons to boo you already. And it's a genre of people that you need people on side, man. It's one of those things. So, okay, talk to me then about how it developed into you then thinking, I could do this. I'd quite like to do this. So how does one go from, I wanted to be a Power Ranger when I was a kid, hasn't panned out. So how does one go from observing battle rap and like enjoying it to, hey, I'd quite like to try this. How does that go?
I think when I realized I wanted to do battle rap as opposed to just watch it was when the first crop came after COVID. And I realized some of these guys, I don't think are as good as they could be, or as I would be if I was in their position. And that was what drove me forward to think, okay, well, if these guys aren't the level that I think I am, I think I should probably give this a go rather than just sort of sit at home thinking, wow, I'm better than those guys. So that was what it was, really. It was the competitiveness of me to watch people who were coming up and thinking, he ain't all it, man. And then wanted to get in and prove that I am all it. If I have done that, I don't know so far, but it's what I wanted to do. That was what it was. That was what jumped me. That's what put me forward to get into the game.
It makes perfect sense, man. I mean, for full disclosure, that's why I got into YouTube. I was watching stuff online. I was thinking, man, this sucks. Like, I could do better than this. And there's only so long you can complain about something before you do two things. Shut the fuck up about it. Or you do something and you go, right, okay, well, if I really am saying that I could be better than this, how would I do it? But then the other question you've got to ask yourself is, what do I do differently? How do I distinguish myself from the thing that I'm critiquing? When you were thinking about getting into it then, apart from the perceived quality of the competition, what were you thinking in terms of, right, battle rap's so storied, and there's a million people, and they do different things, and they've all got their unique characterizations. How do I set myself apart? How do you go about setting yourself apart, even though you're super new, and invariably, and I've seen it already, where people are already making comparisons like, oh, he's like this, or he's like that. How do you shake that off and go, nah, I'm not the next this, or I'm not this person's heir. I'm me, and I'm cultivating my career. How are you approaching that?
It's definitely something conscious. It's something that I'm aware of. And I think it is very difficult to do that, because once the public have a perception of who you are or what you are, that can stay their perception for a very long time. But I think the best way for me to get out of that is to just be who I am and just be myself. Because if who I am is similar to someone else, I don't think it serves me right to change who I am as a person just to be different than someone else. Because I just don't think, I think it's not authentic. It's a little bit fake. I'd rather just be who I am. And if I'm similar to whoever, fine. Because when I battle, I want to enjoy battle rapping as well. And I don't think I could put up a persona and still really enjoy the battles. So I think it would be tiring. So people can think, you know what I mean? They're gonna think anyway. So I'm just gonna keep being me.
Is you that, because, and I'm not forcing this, and you are quite right. Once a narrative takes hold, it's a fucking poison, especially if it's ill-founded. Like, I spoke to Bloodstro recently, and I remember talking to him about the lunacy thing for a long time. Yeah. And I was looking at the battle, and I went, I don't get why you got the reputation you get, because in of itself, that battle, yeah, lunacy did really well, but you didn't shit the bed, and you didn't choke all three rounds. And it was like, so, and we were talking about this idea of narratives and how you combat them. So the question I have then is, how do you turn that to your advantage in an age where narratives are everywhere and you are free to cultivate your own to a certain degree, but like you've just said, you kind of want to stand in your own merits as you don't really want any of the narratives taking hold and then potentially either derailing you or ushering you down a path where it's like, oh yeah, do you know what, this guy should be more aggressive, or this guy should be more physical in his delivery. How do you deal with that in terms of maintaining a focus and kind of blocking out those narratives?
I think the thing that I've done to maintain who I am in battles is to just write things that I like and it's a very difficult one because you have to write for an audience as well. But I feel like if I enjoy it, there'll be a contingency of people who will also enjoy it as well. So I think that's really what it's just been sort of sticking to my guns, whilst also getting the opinion of battle rappers who I've surrounded myself with. But at the very core of it, it's just being authentic. And if I like something and I'm going, "Oh, that's hard," I will say that in a battle, no questions asked.
That's it. That's right. Okay, so that's interesting because that's conventional wisdom to a certain degree. But here's the thing: you are representative of a new generation, not only of performers but likely fans. And with every generation comes I mean, I like it, but why do they do this? Why wouldn't they just do this? Or they have a fresh take on things. Like, and look, I'm guilty of this, man. I harp on about shorts and TikTok and Snapchat and all the rest of this sort of bollocks, but it wasn't aimed at me. It was aimed at the generation that came after me, and likely your generation too. So my question is, what about the current scene or the way it's presented doesn't gel with you? What are things that you're like, man, I still don't get why we're doing this? Or maybe more pertinently, what are you thinking like, man, I'm looking forward to doing this because I'm going to do something that no one else is doing because I can see where they're not doing it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think everyone has their sort of battle rap like pet peeves that they think, well, I don't know why people are doing this or doing that. But at the same time, I understand that hip hop was not designed for my generation of people. However you want to take that is, I think hip hop was designed for a generation of people with much more backbone, whose opinions didn't always shape the room, if that makes sense. I think hip hop in its is saying things that sound cool and things with a message behind them. And I think there's people in my generation who don't appreciate that as much as I do. So my pet peeves in battle rap are people picking up one line out of a 16 bar scheme and going, that line wasn't very good. I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of people who zoom in on one specific thing in a whole scheme and then say, well, the whole scheme's shit now because you said this. I don't like that, especially because it's usually the people who usually do that aren't getting booked as much as the people they're criticizing. And I think that's hilarious because you're criticizing him. So what are you doing wrong if you're not getting booked the same as him? That's my biggest pet peeve in battle rap, I think.
So how do you redress that then? Is it a case that, again, you persist with a style that wins people over ultimately? Because that was something I noticed in your dojo battle was he was more punchline heavy. I think it was fair to say he was prepared to lean into the act. I know you were saying Shuff, but I saw a lot of Marlowe in that performance where it's very, and so then, it's a lot of theatricality, which is fine. That works for some guys. But then you were there perfectly happy to go, right, right, crescendo. There's a payoff to all of this because then you'll see that I was building to something all along. This isn't just me thinking of the next funny thing to say. This is, I have a design in mind. This is all part of a grander scheme. So I guess the question there is that how you're planning to counteract that? Because you're effectively saying, I have my ethos and I have my battle rap philosophy. I'm good at it. I'm really confident in my abilities delivering it, and I'm going to persist with it, even if there are who are just looking for that 15 seconds, 20 seconds shareable moment to put on their story, rather than a 3-minute or 90-second round where it's like, oh, the composition of that was brilliant.
Yeah, I think my style, because I want to eventually have a style where I could have something in each round, 3-1, watch my round and think, well, I like that bit. And from any type of rap background, that's the point I want to get to. And I understand I'm not at that yet. The point I'm at the moment is, like you said, schemes and crescendos and try and lead you down a path, and then maybe I'll completely change what conclusion you thought I was going to. That's the stage I'm at the moment, and that's what I'm focusing on. But like guys like Dojo is incredible at making a room laugh at you, and as simple as that sounds, it's incredible. And you see in my dojo battle, I'm there laughing as well, so I'm thinking, yeah, that was really good. And I realized that I didn't have many jokes in my dojo battle at all. And looking back, I wish I had. I wish I had the confidence in that battle to go, okay, I've got this bar and that bar. Let me just write a joke down, just to have some sort of comedic relief in that battle. And that's something I tried to do in going into my next battle. So I think the way I sort of counteract other people's styles in battle rap is to just have my style be as multifaceted as possible. And of course that takes time. So I'll develop over time.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Again, I know I keep banging on about it, but that's what took me back about your performance, man. This wasn't someone. I mean, look, okay, and I'm not throwing anyone under the bus about this. Go back, take any prolific battle rapper, and go back to their tryout battle. I would argue that I can't think of anyone that really had the same stage presence and same command of themselves, even after a few battles that you did. It was uncanny. Yeah. I was looking at someone and thinking, wait, how many battles has this guy had? No. Get the fuck out. I mean, look, doing these interviews, man, it took me more than the first fucking 4 or 5 to go, oh my God, I'm talking to this person, and not being an idiot. It took time. Like, I gotta ask you, man, where do you think you're going then? If this is where you're jumping off at, this is where you're, like, this is, you know, you're starting a video game, right? And you got your baseline stats. You're middling already. You know, you're not leveling up to get to these levels. You're already kind of starting off at the confidence level where you're like, right, I'm confident in my abilities. I know what I can do, and it's just about getting better, rather than what a lot of people are, which is, how do I even do this? Like, what's me? Like, how do I not steal someone else's style? Because that's what invariably a lot of other people do.
I think it's a combination of things for me. I think me rapping on instrumentals before I started battle rap is something that's helped me a lot, because and also just watching battle raps before I started, because I understand what's good and what isn't. Just something that's naturally good and what's something that's naturally isn't. What's been said and what hasn't been said. So those are advantages I have as a newcomer that some newcomers don't have. And I also think being picked up by guys like Rivers very early on in my sort of rap, even my rap career, guys like Rivers saying, you be dope at this, you be dope at that. And then being able to make connections with people and sit down, have long conversations with very elite battle rappers. And them say, this is something that you have to get down. You have to get your multisyllabics down. You have to get your schemes down. You have to get your rhyme patterns perfect. Your internals have to be there as well. You have to be able to sell your punchline at the very end. I had these conversations probably 2 years before I had my first battle. So I had a long 2-year period, year and a half period, where I was constantly writing battle raps down and thinking, I'd even pick someone who's on the main page of Premier Battles and think, I'm going to write 3 rounds for that guy. So I've probably got in my folder, like, I've probably battled Shotty Horror 9 times over. No, I'm joking. But like, that's something I used to do was sit down and write for people and just think, what would I say to this guy? And then I'd have people look over it and think, yeah, that's hard. I can't believe no one said that to him yet. So my development as a battle rapper has been very weird and unique, because I started my development way before I got to a battle rap ring. I mean, I've been to 2 events in my life, and I've had 2 battles. I've never attended a battle rap event outside of performing at it. So all of my development was done way before, just by talking to people and practicing. And yeah, I've had a weird journey to battle rap, I suppose.
But it's yours. And I guess the most obvious question to ask, and I can't believe I've never asked this question before. What did it feel like stepping on the stage the first time, doing something you'd seen other people doing and thinking, I'd quite like to do that? What's going in your mind when it's right, okay, and then we got this side, we got da-da-da-da, and on this side, got newcomer, he's doing this, DubTee, hey, okay, right, first round on DubTee, let's do this. And now the spotlight's on you, man. How does that feel for the first time?
Like, for the first half of your round, you're thinking, what am I doing here? Well, why have I decided to do this? But then, because my first battle was 90 rounds, so I spent 45 seconds like, yeah, this isn't it. But then the last 45 seconds of my round, I'm thinking, okay, I sort of enjoy this now. Like I knew I would. I knew I would enjoy this. And then my second round, yeah, great. We won't talk about my third round against Dojo. Let's not talk about it.
Well, I don't mind talking about it, because I think there's a lot to take from it as a positive. But we'll come back to that in a second, because we're fixing on that first holy shit, I'm actually doing what the like you say, what the fuck, who let me come out here? Do you know what I mean? But then, like you say, you ease into it, and then suddenly it's like, oh wait, no, okay, I kind of get this. Like, talk to me
Yeah.
about how that continues, man.
Yeah, it was a weird feeling. If I remember it correctly, it was literally just it was the contrast of emotions of, yeah, I don't know about this. So okay, my round started. I have to do this now. I can't just say, yeah, I'm done. And then you just eventually get to the point where you come to terms with it, and that's when the performance starts. That's when you can start delivering your content, because you think, yeah, okay. So like, if you look against my, like, if you look at me versus Dojo, my first round, I start my first round very aggressive and very in his face. But looking back now, I would have delivered that very differently, because I recognized you have to build. You can't just start there. You have to start here and then build, because it hits harder if you do it like that. Okay, so looking back, I can see that mistake, but that was me trying to like sort of find my feet for a minute. It's like when a boxer gets rocked in a boxing ring, and they're like, okay, I need a minute to sort of get my legs back underneath me and carry on. That's how it sort of felt to me. It was me, the first sort of bit of my round was me getting my legs underneath me, so I could then carry on and finish my round strong, which I think I did.
Oh, 100%. And I would also go further and say that the reason I'm not lavishing false praise on this young man, because one of the things that you note about his performing style, and you see this not just with battle rappers, but with anyone who is not yet comfortable in front of an audience that they're acutely aware can respond to what they're doing, i.e. on a Teams call or a fucking group chat messaging service, when someone accidentally hits the fucking call button, they rush. They're like, I have to get it all out. I have to get it all out immediately so I know it's right. And then suddenly the audience senses that little bit of, oh, I can't quite follow what's being said. There was never a moment where I didn't completely believe that you were completely in control of your faculties. And again, that is so rare. Watch any reviewer on YouTuber or early influencer and they all rush. You don't do that. And that's,
I might not.
you got to
the eye,
talk
I
to me
might
about that,
not.
man, because that doesn't just happen, man.
I think mentally I probably was. I think I might have been able to mask it in performance, but I think in your head you're always rushing, especially in a battle rap ring, because you have to be thinking 10 bars ahead of a bit maybe you wrote 2 weeks ago, way after you finished the rest of your content. So like for me, I'm always rushing mentally through a battle rap. But I think that's my way of hiding physically rushing, is to just let it all be in my head for a moment, and then just allow my performance to sort of mask what I'm doing in my head. It's weird, and I can't really explain it adequately. But in the moment, you've got 100 thoughts in your head about, well, what if I don't do this in my third round? But I don't really put it across in my performance. Really, I don't know why. I don't know how. I just don't.
So what you're saying is, and I've used this analogy before, you're a bit more of a Shawn Michaels in terms of you imparting your knowledge here. You're not much of a Regal. You're saying like, hey man, I just do it and it happens and it's great. And you know, if you want me to teach you, I'm happy for you to pay me, but it's going to amount to I'm awesome, and maybe you should try being awesome too.
Well, I mean, I'll take a Shawn Michaels comparison any day, but I don't know. I feel like it is there is an innateness to it. It's the same with rap though. There's been a hundred guys, hundreds of thousands of guys who tried to rap and realized, well, maybe I should leave this to the guys who just have picked up the pen one day and are decent. Obviously, there's people who, and I've got so much development to do, but I think when I started rapping, terrible. When I started battle rapping, because I've been rapping for 2, 3, 4 years before, I sort of understood little bits of how to write and how to sort of, I knew certain cadences and things like that. So I don't think I ever started battle rap with the whole picture complete. Definitely not. Definitely, I'm nowhere near a complete article yet. But I think I had things that were very useful to have early, that some people don't have early. I think that was either luck or just through rapping before battle rap.
that's been quite an intense line of inquiry so far. So I think we need to take the foot off the gas just a little bit, because one of the things that we were talking about, and when we were talking about arranging this interview, is we can talk about MMA and wrestling and all the rest of it sort of stuff. I have to ask, okay, again, I have to illustrate this point. I'm old as fuck, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so old, I can't even remember when I was young, and it's a long time ago, and all the rest of it. But the thing which tickled me about going through your social media feeds in a totally non-stalkerish and totally appropriate way is the diverse attention to kind of everything sporting related. There's a bit of MMA, there's a bit of football, there's a bit of professional wrestling, there's a bit of boxing. Talk to me about your sports fandom, man, because that's interesting that you would go in for traditionally a few things where the fandoms kind of don't like each other very much. So talk to me about that.
I think the football is the one that I've been cursed the most in until recently. My whole childhood as a Newcastle fan was dark, especially when every other kid on the playground supports like City or United or Arsenal or Chelsea, and I'm there like, yeah, okay. Well, I get to watch Steve Bruce manage my game at the weekend. So I think my football fandom has only really come about in the last few years.
I'm not going to have anyone disparage the good name of Steve Bruce. That man kept managers in employment for years and years because of how mediocre and basically all right he was.
He got the bag. I have to respect him for getting the bag, right? But at the same time, ruined 2 seasons for me as a Newcastle fan. Fine. But I think my football fandom's only really, I wouldn't say only really, but has sort of blossomed since the Newcastle takeover. Because I can watch the team and I can enjoy the games and I can see where it's going. But my wrestling and sort of combat sports fandom has been there for a very long time. It's just something that like my cousins or my brother or my dad were watching one day, and I thought, yeah, this is kind of cool. That's all that is. And I I think boxing and MMA are something that in recent years I've been like, yeah, this is the shit. Wrestling is something that I'll dip in and out of because I have a very complicated relationship with wrestling, thinking it's terrible and thinking it's incredible.
Explain complicated through that prism then, because I'm interested to hear what you mean in terms of it's incredible and it's terrible. Like, what comes to mind when it comes to wrestling in those two words?
I'm a very niche wrestling fan. Like, I think there's things out there that people think are incredible that I think it's not that good.
But like what? Tell me, like what? Like what?
I don't know. Like Omega, I don't like Kenny Omega. I
don't like Kenny Omega?
I don't get it. I just don't understand. I don't get it.
I've never... is where the whole interview goes off the goddamn rails, because I'm going to spend the next hour and a half saying basically old man yells at cloud. You don't like Kenny Omega?
I don't know. I feel like it's just gymnastics hidden in, I don't know. I'm a big, like Gunther in WWE. The big, German. Who? He's known as Walter.
Walter? Yes, I know who Walter is, yes. Gunther, never heard of him.
Right, but yeah, that him. I enjoy his matches. His matches are dope. Because, I don't know what it is. There's a believability to it. You think, okay, if this guy hit me, I'm fucked for a long time. I feel like if Kenny Omega hit you, you'd be like, well...
So that's interesting, because that leads into the MMA conversation a little bit, because the thing with Kenny Omega is, and I think this is true about your opinion, his best work was in Japan, obscured by the fact that they're a bit on an island when it comes to their promotion. It's very rare you'll see like a title match or something advertised across the world. Omega Okada was kind of the first time that anyone actually took notice of Kenny Omega in a title match, and then it makes perfect sense. I've seen both Okada matches, or the first ones I should say, the first two, and I know what you're saying, and they're both an hour, so bear that in mind. But honestly, man, storytelling in athletics, Gunther, Walter, he would struggle to do a 60-minute match at that pace when Omega was about work rate. Same with Ospreay, same with Ricochet, and I think I do take your point, but Yeah, I've never heard someone say like Kenny Omega, like, I don't know, if he hit me, but he knees people in the face. Like, come on,
Yeah,
man.
but okay, you watch Walter versus Ilya Dragunov.
Talk about hard. I mean, look, they left evidence, so yeah, I can't say that
There's
that wasn't hard hitting.
there's no one on this planet who can tell me that that match was less entertaining than any Omega match.
Oh,
They beat they beat
slow
the
your roll, sir. Oh, now we're... I didn't have this much debate with Peace Soldier, and he's a fucking wrestling fanatic. Jesus Christ. We're into the weeds now here, ladies and gentlemen, and we're only been going 5 minutes. So wait. So, okay, what about the presentation of Walter under the guise of WWE sells it more for you then? What about the nature of the match or the presentation just in generally? Is it the sheen? Is it the...
Do you know what I think it might be for me? I think in WWE, a wrestler like Walter, we'll call him. A wrestler like Walter.
You can call him Gunther, it's fine.
I'll call him Walter. I'll call him Walter. It's a cooler name. And I feel like Walter's an old man sort of dog name. But yeah, I'll call him Walter. I feel like he in the WWE is like a diamond in the rough for me. I think you don't see much of him in WWE. But if you watch Omega in AEW, I think there's 5 guys that wrestled pretty similar to Omega. So you don't have to watch Omega to watch that style of wrestling. But you have to watch Walter to watch that, I feel like. And I feel like that's why I probably like him more. Because if I watch... And Omega's probably a bad example for what I'm saying. Because now I'm thinking about it, I do like Omega. Probably more than like a Marco Stunt, for example.
That's fine. Or I imagine someone like you, an Orange Cassidy, where it's like, look, I get the gimmick, but is anyone buying he beats up anybody? I take that point. That's fair enough.
Yeah. Because this is my thing. So I'm a big Jim Cornette fan, right? And his opinions reflect my opinions pretty well. I feel like anyway. So
I'm assuming some of them, not some of the ones that get him fired from time to time, I presume.
Probably, yeah. Just his opinions generally on what... Some opinions that he has where it's like, okay, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Like, his opinions on gimmick matches are sort of my opinion. So, like, I remember that you had, like, and rest in peace to Bray Wyatt, but the Firefly Funhouse match at Mania with Cena, I didn't see the point. I just didn't enjoy it. I just didn't enjoy it. There's no enjoyability to that match. There just isn't.
Be still, my aching balls. You didn't like the Firefly Funhouse match?
It was literally a movie scene fight. Come on, man. You're telling me you wouldn't rather watch Cena versus Bray Wyatt in just a regular match?
Have you seen a regular Bray Wyatt match? Again, rest in peace. Tremendously talented performer. Professional wrestler. Nah, no one remembers a Bray Wyatt match.
Yeah, I do. Him versus Daniel Bryan. Was it at Extreme Rules, that match, when his sister Abigail him into the barricade?
Tell me another spot.
Well, listen, I don't need to tell you another spot, right?
You do, because all Bray Wyatt matches are remembered from his... So wait, there was a hologram child that scared Cena and he won. And then there was a mask that came out of the sky and he pulled a baseball bat from his ass.
I would rather a kid singing at John Cena scaring him than watching John Cena like look through some guy's fridge and then get beat up and buy him. I don't.
I can't believe this. I'm actually having an argument about the merits of the Firefly Funhouse. Number one, pandemic. Like, they couldn't do anything else, man.
Yeah, but they had didn't they have Brock versus Drew McIntyre that same night?
I don't know if that was the same night. That was on the same card, granted. Yeah. But as far as if you're gonna do it, would you okay, let me proffer this to you. If you're gonna book Bray Wyatt and John Cena, yeah, you want it to be in front of a big crowd with a good match and all the rest of it. You want it under traditional wrestling rules, right? Yeah. But given there's no fans, and okay, in fact, I mean, did you prefer it when they had the fucking Thunderdome thing, where they had people's faces going?
Not particularly, but I preferred it to the Firefly Funhouse. No, but there was, to be fair, when they had the Thunderdome stuff, they had some pretty cool spots as well. When was it when Dominic Mysterio jumped off the people's heads? That was cool.
That was fine. And John Morrison being speared over the barricades into basically the crowd, that was kind of cool. But
yeah,
you did have Do you know what? I'm making you respond. Like, you weren't in WWE creative. Why am I making you responsible for this? so I would be like, oh, finally, I've got him here now.
I should be part of the creative team at WWE. There would be less bullshit happening.
Oh, okay. Well, let's undermine all of your arguments then by saying, okay, well, what would you do different if WWE does things pretty good? Well, what would you do differently?
I think now they're doing things pretty good. Like, I think the Bloodline stuff they were doing was great.
Yeah, couldn't disagree with you.
But that's because it's not so gimmicky where you can't believe it's happening. Like, I'm it's really undermining myself because I love The Undertaker. But at the same time, at least with the Bloodline, you can watch the Bloodline and go, yeah, okay, that's pretty cool. And I can see these guys doing this thing. I can't watch, like, it was the fact they did so many cuts and chops in the Firefly Funhouse match.
Oh, that we can totally agree that WWE has a goddamn... Whoever's in charge of cinematography and the general principal photography of that show, stop it!
Yeah.
Stop it! We have eyes and they work. We don't need them constantly readjusting to the point where we're worried we're going to have photosensitive epilepsy inflicted on us.
Yeah. But I feel like WWE do a lot of, like, react to this. I don't like that.
Yes.
I don't like being told what to react to.
100%.
I just like being spontaneous, and that was pretty cool. Which is why, like, this is why I liked AEW for a while. Like, I liked a lot of the wrestlers from AEW because they were just most of the time having good matches. When I say most of the time, I have to say that because of, like, what was it called? When they're on the football field.
Oh, yeah, I know the one you're talking about. Yeah, but again, pandemic, though, in fairness, pandemic. So,
yeah, but okay.
And it did give us... You can't say, even though you're not a Kenny Omega fan, the image of him and Matt Hardy chasing down Sammy Guevara in a golf cart with both of them having maniacal looks on their faces is fucking a joy. It's beautiful.
I think it just showed off Guevara's, like, stamina more than anything. That's what...
I'm just saying, though, that WWE copied it with Reigns and Kevin Owens, and Kevin Owens had to go through a bloody window to kind of go, well, ours is better. That poor
but again, that's one bit of the match that was good. Like, come on now. That match was not good.
Okay, interesting. So the WWE and AEW stuff, you're not a fan of the gimmicky stuff. You're more a fan of the athleticism and the in-ring storytelling. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
For sure.
Well, that's interesting because we can bring it back to battle rap in that sense then, because one of the things that I've always wondered about battle rap is what prevents it from going from niche to underground to then more mainstream. One of the things that I've spoken to people about is the presentation of the artists in the venue, and I know that Premier Battles have started to change this a little bit because they've got now intro music, they've got the customized shirts, and they've got a few other little things that they do, but broadly speaking, I think they could do some more things to make their guys more like stars and proper personalities. But that's just my opinion. For you, as someone that's going to be in that position one day where they're going to be like, right, so do you have any ideas about how you want to be presented? Like, what comes to mind? Is there anything you'd want to see them do more of, or is there anything you'd want them to do differently?
I feel like I remember I was a fan in the scene when they were, like, doing the best of videos on the main Don't Flop channel. So I remember you have, like, the best of Lunacy, for example. That banged, and people watched it and thought, okay, now I've watched some of his highlights, let me go and watch the full battle. I feel like things like that could be useful, but at the same time, it's very time consuming, especially when you're editing a battler who maybe you don't think is the best, and you have to look through his highlights and yeah. But I think that could help potentially garner a fan base around specific battlers, where they're like, okay, I enjoyed this bar he had, I enjoyed that bar, so maybe I'll enjoy the whole thing. I feel like they could do that more. Definitely, I feel like it's definitely done more.
Is it also about fan participation for you? Because again, the battles you've watched up until this now, or the battles that you've observed, and kind of the generation that you grew up with, one of the things that seems to be more of a lost art is that real generate. I get that, again, all channels do it. Please like, share, and subscribe, and make sure to share, and make sure to click all the fucking notification bells and subscribe to every fucking platform of ours. But I don't see that genuine interaction with the fans. Like, right, here's your forum to tell us what you liked and didn't like. Like, is that something, or is that something that you think took away from the original?
I think that's a huge problem with modern battle rap, is that fan opinions. Okay, to some extent, it's difficult to accept a fan's opinion just on face value because they don't know what it's like to actually battle.
And they're
But at
biased
the
as well,
same
so,
time,
you know.
of course, but at the same time, they are the consumers of this. Without those people, this doesn't happen. So I feel like the fan opinion, it has to be respected to some extent, especially when the fan opinion is very solid on one specific thing. If all the fans don't like something, you probably shouldn't keep doing it, because you know what I mean. It's true. Like
Like how he's edited properly to be a little bit politically minded. He probably shouldn't. It's like, no, definitely don't do it. You're like, yeah, if there's something objectively that, like, people do, like, look, okay, I'll give you an example. I had to listen to people when I said, right, dude, we can't pay attention to your reviews because you rock in your chair. Literally everyone said that. So do you know what I did?
Yeah.
Got rid of the fucking chair. So it's like, okay, if something happens where people are constantly referencing it and they're saying they don't like it and you don't listen because, well, yeah, but I know better than you. Yeah, that shows a tone deafness to your audience. It's never good. It's not a good thing.
No, definitely, and especially when it's okay, but I know better than you. I feel like that's a very dangerous thing to have in a scene that is so objective, because at the end of the day, it's literature of a form, right? So anyone can have an opinion on what you say. If someone thinks what I say is trash, it doesn't mean it is, but it could legitimately be bad. There's a possibility of that. So just to reject that because they're not battlers, I feel like is something that you can do sometimes, but at other points you just have to take it on the chin and just think, well, maybe they are right. Maybe I should just improve, rather than say, well, you're not a battler, you shouldn't have this opinion. Or you know what I mean? I feel like, for me, I think criticism is incredibly important. And like, if anyone does ever have any criticism for me, I'd probably take it better than praise, to be honest, because it gives me something to focus on. It gives me something to look back on specifically and think, okay, I can see where they're coming from. I think that's so important, especially in a scene like battle rap where you can always improve. You can't be under the illusion that you're perfect because some other rap battlers told you that you're pretty good. I would like to be criticized more than praised, probably. Obviously not to the point where people are saying I'm just trash, right? But at the same time, I think criticism is very healthy, is my point.
If it's coming from the right place almost 100% of the time, because like you say, it gives you something to work on. But you've hit on something very interesting there, and I agree. And the question then gets posed, which is, and I'll share this. I've shared this story before. I'm leaving the Plug 3, and I mentioned something about the Shotty Horror Shuffle T battle. And it was just an observation. It wasn't meant to be derivative. It was just man, I saw Shotty stumble there. You never see that. Over my shoulder, Gemini's there, and he takes massive offense to this, as if to say, how dare you insinuate that he didn't try his hardest and all the rest of it. And I remember thinking, right, I get you think I'm just some scrub, and I'm just having a dig. And I wasn't. All I was doing was highlighting the fact that I understood that Shotty Horror has a certain quality, and that event was the first time that I'd ever see a chink in the armor, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you have a defensiveness there of the performers for the performers, which I totally understand, because like I imagine you're alluding to, which is, no offense, guys, you don't know what we go through to put these on for one show that we can't, like, musicians get to play sets, comedians get to tour. We get to one opportunity to do this rap, and that's it. So you don't know what we go through. But
I can see I can see where you're going with it already, and
because the fans have to have their opinion heard, though. It's the thing of you have to appreciate I wasn't there for those months that you were preparing the battle, so I can only judge you based on what you want to say. So my question is, what would you do to try and help bridge that gap? How would you bring the fans closer to the performers and the performers, like yourself, closer to the fans, so that they can both better empathize with each other?
I think there has to be some level of middle ground. I don't think there is, maybe at the moment. So I get it from both perspectives, because I've been both. I've been just a fan and I've been a battler. So I get from the battler perspective, a lot of hard work goes into this. You have, let's say you're doing three threes, right? 3 3-minute rounds, right? You can't stumble because you can't reuse the content. When you stumble, you instantly diminish that round, potentially the whole battle. I understand that stress there, but at the same time, from a fan perspective, you were just making an observation. You saw something, and you wanted to talk about what you'd seen, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially because you weren't just pulling the observation out of thin air. I'd imagine I can't really remember the battle on camera. They might have edited it, they might not have, but you saw it happen. You didn't just make it up. You know what I mean? And especially if you're a fan who's informed, who's watched a lot of battles, you know what's good and what isn't. So like, I personally don't see any problem with fan expression. Personally, maybe because I haven't been on the bad end of fan expression. Potential, and that's potential. But I still think that fan opinion is very important.
I mean, I want to ride the wave dangerously here, and I'll let you choose whether or not you want to come on this ride with me, because some of the things about battle rap do mystify me. One of the things that mystifies me the most is judging. Judging is one of those things that they entrust to certain people, and yet each individual person has their own criteria. At which point I have to question, how are you picking judges? Because none of them seem to agree on criteria.
It's a massive problem, and it's something that I think I spoke to. I think it was either Rivers or Scoop I spoke to about. I remember having the conversations like, how can we have like an objective way to judge a subjective thing? It just doesn't seem. And I suppose there has to be a criteria. And Prem tried to do it. Prem tried to have a criteria where they had a list of like the best punches, who was the better joker, who was cleaner, and like crowd participation or something. And you'd rank it from like 1 to 5, and you'd score it at the end. But that's monotonous. That isn't like a smooth sailing judging system. I think sometimes you just have to. Again, this is why the fans are so important. You can usually judge who's won a battle based off the room. Usually. There's obviously the outliers where you think, well, on camera this guy won, but in the room that guy won. But I think in the room is very important, because if you can convince people who you're in the presence of that you've beat someone in a battle rap, you probably have. You at that point you've won. So I think the judging, I get it for maybe title matches. I understand that if you've got something on the line, you have to have people. And again, it's difficult. I think the point you're raising is, how do you qualify someone as a judge? Which I don't know. I couldn't give the answer to that, to be honest.
Sort of. I guess what I'm saying there is that in something like MMA, you're a fan of it. They have rules and they have guidelines and regulations that they don't make sense to this day, but we stick to them because, well, changing them at this point might make things worse. And you go, but they might also make things better. And the idea of having like judges that are unilaterally told, like you mentioned with Premier Battles, like something like a stumble or a choke. Okay, here's how you should take that into account, rather than what the common consensus is in my view of battle rap is, the second someone chokes, it doesn't matter if they recover like you did in your third, because I think that bears repeating, that not only did you it was like, man, I don't know if I can get this. It's like, no, take a second. And you did. You recovered. You got it back. And that has to... I get that the stumble itself has to go against you, but I also think having the fucking brass nuts to go, wait, no, hang on. Right, I'm back. That has to count for something too. I really do. Yeah. I think that has to show something.
I think it does if you recover better than your opponent, if your opponent stumbled as well. Because I feel like it's one of them. If your opponent's had a completely clean performance, I feel like the stumble has to count for something.
Because that we can agree, yeah.
Yeah, I think judging battle raps it's something that's good to have there, because for fandom, because you think, well, this guy beat that guy, so that guy is my favorite now. But like at the same time, I think it's very irrelevant as well.
So that's a good point. So would you say then, like me, because I don't go to battle rap events to see who's going to beat who. I go because I want to see that guy battle that guy, because I want to see what that looks like. I want to see what that sounds like. I want to see what they come up for against each other. And sometimes that can be like with a Bobby Rex. It's violence. It's visceral. It's anger. It's intertwined with lines that you're like, fucking hell, Bobby, where did that come from? And then you get other battlers that come up with interesting schemes, intricate lines, imaginative punchlines, or some guys, like a shuffle, will just go on and go, you all know what I'm going to do, and you know it's going to be good, so let's just all sit back and enjoy it, and he delivers. Like, is that more what you're thinking then, in terms of, like, guys, we're performers, we're not combatants, we're here to put on a performance that the crowd goes, that was fun, I want to come again.
I feel like with battle rap stuff, it's very difficult to find a middle ground there, because it's something that is competitive, and it's something where you both work very hard to get your material. You both want to be able to say, wow, my material was better than his. But I think if you were to watch, I could compare it to wrestling. If you were to watch a wrestling match, let's say we were watching, I don't know, Edge versus Roman Reigns, yeah? Regardless of who wins the match, you don't suddenly dislike Edge anymore because he lost the wrestling match. And I think it should probably be the same in battle rap. In a perfect world, this guy beat that guy. It is what it is. I'm still going to watch both of their next battles. And that's something that's very difficult to get to. And I think it's a difficult middle ground to find it. Because like I say, as a performer, I want to be able to say I'm better than him. But at the same time, if I was to lose a battle, I don't think I should have to have or lose fandom or people who like my battles because I've lost one battle based on a judge decision. It's just a difficult one, and I don't think they'll ever solve it. To be honest, I think it'll always be something we talk about because I don't see how you can solve it. To be honest.
Well, then talk to me about controversy in battle rap, because that seems to be a weird one at the moment. There really isn't a lot of it. The only times you see some controversial stuff backwards and forwards, that takes hold of the narrative quite quickly. Whereas back in the day, there was some genuinely bad feelings held between certain battlers. Now, I get that it's largely a performative thing, but there really isn't a lot of that going around. I guess the question there is, in your view, as a performer and as a fan, how do you feel about that?
I just think that I'm quite lucky to be in the point of battle rap that I am, because I think we're in a scene now who understands there's unwritten things that you do and don't do in the current battle rap scene. So, like, the example I'm thinking off the top of my head was when who was it? It was someone versus O'Shea, and they did the line about was it Reece Jones? I can't remember who it was, but it was O'Shea. I think it might have been Definition or something. And Definition said something that's completely over the line. But I think we need those moments so we can then go in the future and say, right, battle rap's a place where you don't pull any punches, but at the same time, you're a bit of a dick if you talk about this, or this.
You're remembering that it's ultimately for the fans' benefit, not just to eviscerate. Your job isn't to eliminate your opponent from being a performer forever by undermining or disrespecting them to the point where they become unprofessional and have a fight or something along those lines. Your job is to take it up to the line where your opponent understands the work, but the audience is sucked in.
Yeah. I think if you're specifically writing your battle raps to make someone never battle rap again, I think you're probably thinking a little bit too deep into it, and you should probably go have a lie down. But I think it's not that serious, man. Just write your best material, perform it to the best of your ability, and if people like you, they like you. That's all I think this has to be. In my perfect world, that's what battle rap is. But at the same time, I understand there's people out there who don't care about how good you are. If there's something about you they don't like, they're never going to like you as a battle rapper. And I understand that. And it's something that just is what it is. But I feel like it will always make battle rap somewhat limited in that sense, because we can't just appreciate everyone for what they are. There's always some level of hierarchy where I can't give you the respect that everyone else knows you deserves because of X, Y, and Z. I just think it's ridiculous, but it is what it is.
Let me ask you something then, as again, this is something you may not have dealt with yet, and judging by my other conversations with other battlers, they all do deal with. And it's a weird balancing act that you're going to have to strike, which is, as a, you're trying to sell tickets, you're trying to get people interested in you and your persona, you're trying to garner an online presence.
Yeah.
but that presence is going to be used as ammunition against you invariably. How the fuck, in a genre where people will do what I did, which is they're going to Google you, they're going to go through your socials, they're going to find out as much real world information about you so that they can weaponize it to a certain degree, how much or how hard is it going to be for you to balance, right, I want people to know who I am, I want them to know what I'm about, what makes me different, why they should tune into me, why they should pay a ticket, while also, but if I give this away, they're going to use that shit, because I know someone's going to make a stupid bar about this fucking thing if I say, like the Lawn's a Power Ranger fan. Oh, well, I've got some, and you said you like Power Rangers, like, because that would, well, fuck, my name would be used against me in a battle rap, let alone fucking anything else. Oh, your name's Lawn, is it? Well, okay, like, fucking hell, there'd be a million things. How do you balance that? Or how are you going to go about that?
I don't think it's me personally. I don't think it's a case of balancing it because I'm trying to be my authentic self, right? If someone picks up on a flaw, they're just criticizing me as an authentic person, right? So I suppose it's easier to deal with because you're thinking, well, me being myself has led you to this conclusion, so I can't be mad at you for that. I can't be angry at you for picking something out of me because of something I've said or done. I feel like some people just have to stand on who they are, right? And if you get dissed about it, you get dissed about it. Because you've got around after what they're saying. So you have your opportunity to counteract what they're saying. Usually, anyway. You have a chance to come back at them. So I don't think it's an issue that I'm never going to be consciously thinking, wow, I hope they don't say this or that. Because I'm not putting up a false front. I am just being myself and saying things that I like, and I think that's good content, right? So I just, me being myself, it's a gift and a curse, because if someone says something that I really don't like about myself, it is what it is, I suppose, and that's the attitude I have towards it.
Okay. Philosophy student?
Yeah.
Tell me about that, because that was very fleetingly mentioned, and that's interesting because most people that study shit in school, university, college, or sixth form can't shut the fuck up about what it is that they study to the point where you go, so what do you do for a job though? Oh, I work in accounting. So, philosophy, what, I mean, when, how, where, what, why philosophy?
So I did it as one of my A levels. I did philosophy.
It does my heart the world of good, ladies and gentlemen, to hear that A levels are still a thing, because man, I was fully accepting him, I was fully embracing him, about to go, so I did my ZH head LZs, and I'm like, what the fuck are those? Oh, they're the exams you do after you finish school. Oh, we used to call those A levels, so that's fine, that's cool. We're off to a good start.
I did it as one of my A level subjects. I really enjoyed it. I enjoy debating intangibles usually. I'm quite a sadist like that. Like, there's nothing that I can't prove you wrong, but I'm gonna try. I enjoy that. I like something that I enjoyed.
Debating intangibles because he enjoys it. I think we've just discovered my regen, ladies and gentlemen, because preach. I love a good discussion. I love a good debate, especially if it's with someone smarter than me. Present company is definitely included in that, by the way. So again, young man, I have to stress the point that if I had even half of the confidence and cadence that you currently possess, think I'd be a fairly successful producer or influencer who would preface and end each sentence with the word bro. I currently don't do that, and I'm working on it. Bro, there you go. Podcast hashtag. So philosophy then. So what were some of the things that you took away from philosophy that you do apply though? Because I find that some people who actually study this stuff do garner things, even if it's subconscious. Like, I studied psychology, I studied DT, I studied art, and I studied physical education. So it's no wonder that I'm still into my fitness. I still take creative things very seriously. I think creativity is an important part of the human experience. But I also did psychology because I like tricking people out by saying I could train you to do pretty much anything I want with a bell and chocolate. So talk to me about your philosophy studies and how you've kind of, if there's anything you've garnered that you apply that you're like, isn't it weird that none of you know this and I know this and it's so simple, yet I know it and you don't?
I don't know. I think the main thing I took away from philosophy is to question everything that comes your way. and I think that's always good as well. Just to question it, but like developing your understanding of something is something that I've picked up just from doing education growing up, and it's something that I'll take with me later into life. But philosophy for me, so like certain things we did in philosophy, so we spoke about God, we spoke about the soul, the afterlife, those intangible things, right? We don't know, but we have a probability of maybe or maybe not, right? I don't have to tell you where I lean towards, but I did 2 years of the thing, and my opinion didn't change from the start to the end. That's what I'll say. But yeah, I feel like yeah, philosophy, it helped me a lot. Just it helped me, like character development. It helped me.
You would have been affected by the pandemic then, for your studies then, presumably.
Yeah, I didn't do any GCSEs.
No GCSEs.
No. I didn't do an exam until May this year.
Get the fuck out of here with that shit. You didn't have to do GCSEs?
It just let me into A levels, basically. No, it's because they did a thing called center assessed grades, where the teacher would guess pretty much what you would have got in the exam, and that was it. So it's fair to say I didn't backchat any teachers that year. I was the best kid ever, because I'm thinking, okay, if you don't like me, you're giving me a fat you know. So I thought, yeah, right, I'll just knuckle down for this year, because yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, guys. There's no way that would have flown in my time, because our teachers were around us during sixth form parties when we were getting fucking blitzscreened. So there's no way we'd have passed on credit in that time. Jesus, they just gave you A levels, as in, right? You can do them.
Yeah.
Madness. That is that's a bummer, man. And that's after I got misquoted in a newspaper once. If you ever get a chance, Google Chronicle and Echo Lorne Risley. There's a picture of me with a blonde mohawk saying, "I can't ready to start my future." Never fucking said that. Wasn't something I was ever fucking said. Misquoted, and I'm glad the Chronicle died. Anyway, side note. So your career now, because you're getting started as a young man not only in battle rap, but presumably in your future endeavors. So my question there is, how do you balance managing a online and live persona with your pursuits outside of it? Like, presumably you're going to be building a future career outside of it, but battle rap is a really intense form of entertainment. So how are you attempting to balance that?
I think it's easier when you're not putting up a front, because if I was putting up a front, I'd have to manage the battle rap version of DubTee and the real life version of DubTee. But I don't. I just have to manage the singular entity that I am. Because the way I see it is, me who steps into a lecture hall is the same person pretty much who steps into a battle rap ring. Obviously, in the battle rap ring, I'm saying things I would never say in the other environment, but it's the same person pretty much. There are people out there who get into a battle rap ring and go, "I am now my stage name." I can't do that. I've just made it so I can go through every venture as the same thing, and I think that's a gift that I'm going to do that, and it's going to be difficult, obviously, but it's something that I prefer to do that. I'd rather just be unauthentic or unapologetically me, and bear the consequences of it, if and when they come.
Well, I have to put something to you, though. Just, if not to challenge your assessment of yourself, but certainly to maybe question whether or not that would be enough. Because there's a famous saying in wrestling: the best characters, the best performers, the best long-standing acts are the real person, but cranked up to 11. They embellish certain aspects of their personality or some of their natural innate traits to make sure that they maximize their impact and impression on an audience. So with that in mind, I appreciate what you're saying, which is that you're not attempting to present yourself as something you're not, but is there anything about yourself that you're looking to really capitalize on? Because that is something that you could really lean on to distinguish yourself, to set yourself apart from the pack as, right, this guy, this is someone really worth keeping an eye on.
I think it's just because my goal ultimately is just to be known as one of the best rappers. And I think to be one of the best rappers, of course, I get what you're saying. And I would agree to some extent. I think while me in a battle rap ring is just me being myself, obviously I am doing things in that environment that don't make sense to do elsewhere. So I couldn't just randomly go into, I don't know, the shops and drop a 16-bar scheme about how much my milk costs. But like at the same time, I could approach the situation with the same confidence and the same intention to just want to I like to be magnetic and talk to people and express my opinion. I just want to approach everything I do in life with the same intensity and the same confidence. And it's done me all right to this point, I suppose.
And that's fair enough. I only asked that question though because it seems to me, and it's just this is a purely anecdotal. I don't have any real evidence to support this claim, but it seems to me like every performer has a seminal moment that people then equate to them going forward, even if they go in different directions or they do something ultimately different from how they're first introduced. I think of Shuffle T in this example because there isn't anyone who wasn't originally introduced to him as, wait, yeah, I saw him. He was on my Facebook feed complimenting a guy. Like, I get that wasn't his ultimate gimmick, and he evolved as a performer since then, but he was uniquely adapted for that moment. He was where he needed to be, and he was equipped to be able to deal with it. And if he'd have approached that in any other way than what he was equipped to deal with it, it would have been cringy. It would have been not memorable. It would have been a combination of different bad things. So I guess what I'm asking to this then is, what's your ambition then? Where are you looking to put yourself if you're not looking to really cultivate something about yourself that, like you say, isn't true in the form of a persona or a delivery style that's like overly theatrical or dramatic? Where are you looking to put yourself where you're like, right, I'd be suited there. If I had this opportunity, people would see me and they'd go, right, that's the fucking man right there.
I think it's difficult for me to, at this point, to pinpoint where or when that could happen. Like I feel like when my seminal moment happens, I will then be able to springboard.
When? I like that. That's good. When, not if. When. That's good. I like that.
Yeah. Always. Right. So when that moment happens, I'll be able to then springboard off of that and think, well, people really enjoyed that. I should probably do more of that. And that moment hasn't happened yet. But when it does, that will be incredible for me because I can then pinpoint what it is about me personally that people reach for and people want more of. At the moment, it is me battle rapping at the moment is pretty much me writing my rounds, things that I like, going in, seeing what works and what doesn't, really. And the bits that work, and this is my process for battle rap. And I had my first battle in probably February this year, maybe a little bit after that. But then I had my most recent battle in August. So I had a big gap where I was both doing my exams and also, but mainly.
Sorry, there's something brilliant about that because again, in some of these endeavors, man, you have to understand, young man, social media was in its infancy when I was in school. So the idea that anyone was doing anything of any note that didn't amount to a Jackass ripoff just wasn't a thing. So the fact that you're sitting there, study for your exams and the real world and all that comes with it, meanwhile, I'm cooking him like in the background is just, there's something brilliant. I love that that's possible these days. That's brilliant.
Yeah, so preparing for my exams and then also rewatching my dojo battle relentlessly and picking out things that worked and what didn't work and then trying to understand why it worked and then why it didn't work. And it took me from February to August to pinpoint every little bit that I thought was good and bad. And that's why in August, I decided to step back in. You know, I need that gap in between my battles to reassess. And that's why I don't want to jump in. Like the next short circuit cards is this month. But I can't. I just can't yet. One, because of university endeavors. And two, because I need more time to assess my last battle. What was the question? I went on a little tangent there.
So the question was centering around like how you put yourself in a position where people can really. I'll use myself as an example. Soul. If Soul hadn't been my second interview, I wouldn't have got Tony. If I hadn't got Tony, I wouldn't have got Briggsy. If I hadn't got Briggsy, it was like if he hadn't have just taken a chance on me at that time, we wouldn't be sitting here talking. And it was just so happened that he'd seen my shuffle battle. Like I'm a battler. Fuck me. He'd seen my shuffle interview, and he's like, well, I mean, you seem like you're reasonably interested, and you seem to have some decent questions, and you're enthusiastic, so I'll give you a shot. If I hadn't taken that gamble and put myself in the position to say, no, I want to talk to you, this wouldn't have happened. And it's a good job I did, because for some reason y'all seem to not mind me waffling for 2 hours. So like, how do you put yourself in the position where someone who is collected, confident, astutely observed, very well mannered and very well spoken, yet with there's an edge to the way you deliver things as well. I'm not saying it's violent or visceral like a Unanimous or a Bobby Rex. There's a calm violence to your demeanor. I'm sorry to put it in such blunt terms like that, but there is a
Hannibal Lecter shit, right?
It's very much like Bane. Bane would be the closest thing. This guy, you know, could do horrible things to you, and because he's just confident in his intimidation factor, he lets you have just enough to let you know don't step above your bounds. That's you right now. You're not overwhelming opponents with that threat of violence, but you're certainly commanding the space. There was never a point in your dojo battle where I thought he was going to step to you. You were always getting a bit closer and commanding the space in and amongst this very intricate and very well-devised rhyme scheme that commanded the attention. I always find that interesting about battle rap. I get that you're after a response from the audience. I think it says so much more when an audience is just listening. They're just honed in. They're just listening to every word that's coming out of your mouth, like a soul. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's something about a soul performance where you're like, man, it's quiet, and you go, yeah, man, he's cooking, and they're letting him cook. Like, there's something about that. So, right, waffle aside, how do you put yourself in the position where you need to be?
I think the way I do that is just by one day stumbling across the one bar where people go, yeah, DubTee said that. And that will happen one day. I thought it would happen this battle because I had a line. I got me a victim in the pit like Buffalo Bill.
I've seen that making the rounds today. It was great. It was real good.
I thought that was the line. I thought people were going to say yeah. And it popped and people enjoyed it, but it just wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I wanted it to be. And I think one day I'll get to the point where I have one bar or one battle where I don't step a foot wrong, and I have that one bar that everyone remembers. And I think that it will be my seminal moment, and it will happen. It will happen maybe in the next few battles. Refining, so it has to happen eventually. Like I think, especially with battle rap, if you have a certain talent in it, eventually you'll come across the one bar, and I just need to find the one bar, I suppose.
In that case, do you know what? I love interviewing battle rappers because they always segue me into questions so easily. It's just it's a joy and a privilege as an interviewer. So let me ask you then: in the pursuit of that seminal bar, in that pursuit of that, you know, for me, like with Bizzo, it was that guy against Tony. With Tony, there's so many, but there's the shotty stuff. There's you know, shuffle tee, and the list goes on. As you're trying to find that voice and that lyric and that you know, where do you draw your inspiration from? Where are you looking to kind of like, right, what's really going to move me? What's really going to light a fire into me? What's really going to give me that eureka moment? What do you look to?
I think there's a big overlap with it in like comedy, for example. Because I think if you look for a lot of comedians, they're all looking for that one joke that is perfect in every way. And that one joke that can make anyone laugh, regardless of any characteristic they have. You can just hear this one joke and laugh. And I think that's sort of what I'm like with battle rap. I'm just looking for that one bar that is perfect. And that's that. If I get to that point, I think I'll be happy. Obviously, I've got goals within battle rap, but if I get to the point where I've written a bar that is objectively good, I think I'm fine.
But where is it going to come from? Is it popular culture? Is it your studies? Is it your observations about the world? Is it an experience that you've had? Where do you, I mean, again, if I look to my experiences and inspirations, it usually comes from something fantastical. It's a crystallizing moment that I've seen and I go, right, I need to use this to communicate something. That's where my inspiration comes from, and it's usually in popular culture. Where is it found for you?
I think for me, I don't think the perfect bar can be found in popular culture, but mainly because there'll always be one person who hasn't seen what we're talking about.
Or it dates itself.
Yeah. So the Buffalo Bill bar is a good line, but it relies on people knowing who Buffalo Bill is, which is why it isn't perfect. And I realize that now. Because in my head, everyone's seen Hannibal Lecter. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. But of course, they don't. Not everyone knows what I'm talking about. And that's why reflection is so important for me. Because just in the brief, like few weeks since my battle, I've clocked, yeah, okay. The reason why that didn't pop as well as you thought it would, is because there's inevitably going to be people who haven't seen what you're talking about. So I think the perfect bar is just something so simple that everyone has experienced at some point or the other, and then applying it to your opponent. What that is, I have no idea, but I think I'll find it hopefully one day.
No, and that's why, with all due respect to him, the Shuffle T battle that I was there against Shotty, there were 2 bars, and on both of them, I had to turn to my friend who's about 10 years younger than me, so I got it. The punchlines are Joseph Fritzl and Ian Huntley. Right, I get you are of the same generation who would go, who's Ian Huntley? Because
no, I know who Ian Huntley is, but that's because I'm a weirdo.
But that's because, I mean, with all due respect, you weren't like he was everywhere for about a year and a half, but that was 20 years ago. So like that bar is insane, but it relies entirely on you being alive and having not had that experience. So I take that point.
Or just have seen it.
Right.
It relies on you having seen it, which I think, and I love that bar. What was it? It's like calling Ian Huntley
a cheeky monkey. Yeah, it's fucking insane.
Incredible. But at the same time, it partly relies on you knowing who Ian Huntley is. Of course, the rhyme, great. And then you had the Joseph Fritzl line. What was it?
Lock up your daughters, Joseph Fritzl. Yeah.
Again, great. If you know who Joseph Fritzl is, great.
But do you also think? No, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, please.
So obviously I know who both of those people are, so I can appreciate both of those lines for what they are. But to someone, I'm now in the mindset of, I need to write a line for someone who has no idea about anything else I'm going to talk about. Someone who doesn't know anything. I think there's a bar out there for someone who doesn't know anything, and one day someone will find it. Hopefully, it's me.
But do you concede the fact, though, that you, and in both contexts, in your bar there and in Shuffles, you both did do everything you can to lay the groundwork so people could follow generally the gist of the joke? Like, with yours, it was a reference to the pit. Yeah. And, I get that the Buffalo Bill reference it's a cultural reference that's, not everyone's necessarily going to catch. But the double meaning of the word pit should be apparent to anyone that listens to it. So, I think you should give yourselves credit for the fact that even notwithstanding the word and the multisyllabic nature of the setup, the fact that you're setting it up so an audience can follow the double meaning, that's again a skill. That's something that you are already you're already there or thereabout. So the perfect bar, as it were. I mean, you're knocking on the door, presumably.
Well, it could be one of those things where the perfect bar doesn't exist. But I hope it does, and I think one day someone will find it. Hopefully, to me, it's like the most perfect diamond, really. Like, and the word perfection, it's my philosophy student bullshit. So like the word perfection is so shaky because there is no such thing as perfection, because someone out there somewhere doesn't think it's perfect. So it can't be perfect by definition, but close. I want to get something close to perfect. I think maybe I'll get there one day, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, battle rap is unique in the sense that you have to follow what's being said, and one of the things that I find unique about battle rap as well is that you can watch battles multiple times and catch things each time, and you can find extra layers to things, and like you say, the audience participation in the room versus at home, like, it is mad sometimes. Like, the one that stands out to me is the second Shotty Horror and Arsenal battle, where Arsenal turns mid-battle and is like, man, you really like wrestling, because half the crowd didn't catch half the wrestling bars, and Arsenal's there like, man, there's fucking millions of these. Where the fuck do you know all these? So let me ask you then one last question about the nature of battle rap to you, since we're going backwards and forwards. As a member of a new generation of artists who are going to hopefully take battle rap in a different direction for an audience that exists not only in the live form, not only online, but in this bite-sized culture where it's got to be palatable, it's got to be swipeable, it's got to be consumable quickly, and it's got to be direct, and it's got to be... You can make it multi-layered, but the best content these days is literally subtitled. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, it's direct and there's not really a lot to read into it. Yeah. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the fact that you are ultimately going to be compared to people that can just make a very direct punchline, whereas you strike me as the kind of guy that's you are gonna put in the work, you are gonna try and cultivate something that really has some resonance, and that might not be ultimately what your audience is clamoring for. How do you feel about that?
I think the perfect response is to try and do both. To have some bits that are deeper and require some level of, so he said this, and this. Oh, I understand what he meant now. And then also having things like, that's just good. Yeah, that's fire. So like, it's something that was something I consciously had in my head before my last battle. I wanted to have Easter egg bars, is what I called them. So things you could look back and think, okay. So I had one, you're fucking with the wrong cat, you're just an internet killer, right? And to me, that makes sense, because don't fuck with cats, internet killer. But I wanted to have that like that. So you could go back and think, well, for people who didn't catch it the first time. So he must have said that for a reason. Everything I say in that line, it's there for a specific reason. I think lines like that are special to me. They are my favorite lines. Okay, so why did he say that, and that? And that's why I like Tony so much, because Tony has a lot of schemes where it's like what was it? He did the who was it against? He did the like the body anatomy scheme, where it's like, who was that against? It's like skin, and he did all the different body parts and things like that. I can't remember who it was against.
And he's got a load of those. He's got the con round against O'Shea. He's got that the Egyptian scheme against Bizzo, and it's all like, oh wait. And after the fact, you catch all of it simultaneously when you finally realize, oh, it was all part of it. Like, 100%.
Those are the most enjoyable bits for me, because then you go back, you can rewind it and go, okay, so he started setting up there. That's when he was that's the original point. That there is the beginning. That there's the end, and all that in the middle is that's the content. That's the material. That's incredible. That is the best bit of battle rap. Obviously, you have people out there who just want to go and hear bars. Who just want to go and hear single 4-bar schemes, punchline at the end. And some days I am that person. But there's other days where I want to just sit and watch someone take me on a journey from one point to the other and be impressed for the whole point. And that's rare now. I think we're in the generation I come from, you have a couple that want to do that. But for the most part, they want instant like joy from a line. They want instant reaction. And I think that's partly because of influences from elsewhere. So you watch a battle, it's reaction, reaction, reaction. But I don't think it has to be that. Sometimes it can just be a whole thing, and then you stop, and then you can see the thought process of people going back over what you just said and picking it up bit by bit. That's beautiful. That's battle rap at its finest. And that's something that I want to do going forward.
Yeah, I couldn't. There's a weird audience reaction in battle rap where the punchline to an entire scheme comes into view, and that happens, what you just described, right? And it's a rise. It's and it goes through several phases. It's the most peculiar thing in the world. The only thing I can equate it to is like when a wrestling spot is being set up, but it's one of those wait, he's not serious.
Yeah.
No, he's not serious. No. Oh my god, I can't believe, like, that's the only other thing that comes close to that sort of audience participation. But
And sometimes they pick it up
yeah,
midway through, and that makes the last 50% even better because you're aware of what they're doing. You think, okay, what else can you do with that? And your Tony versus Bizzo Egypt scheme is the perfect example because people picked up on. He went, what was it? So you're in denial, and it's like, okay, I see what he's doing now.
the king,
and then you
bury that geezer, like the cook,
Yeah.
and they're like, wait, bury that geezer. You can hear someone in the background, like the pyramids, like, oh man,
At least that's the Google explanation. Like, it's great, right? And people picked up on what he was doing before he finished what he was doing. So it even added to it. That's battle rap at its finest, in my opinion.
And that's fine. And the question I was going to segue into there is, does part of you, a part of yourself that you don't like to talk about very much, secretly miss a Pedro or a Luna C going, and now it's mum joke time. Your mum's got a tattoo of the Umbro sign. Like,
Of course.
I know
definitely.
it's stupid, but there's something about battle rap that lets you just go, oh, go on then, just say some stupid shit.
Sometimes you can't take yourself so seriously. I think if you have a whole battle of you being too serious, that gets boring after 3-4 battles. And that's why Pat Stay was so great. Because Pat Stay could make you laugh and could make you go, that was a sick bar.
Yeah. In fact,
And
the first bar of his I ever saw was his gym partner. Like, where he's like, you're more disappointed in that guy you call to go to the gym, and he cancels it. Like, and then he goes off on these little jokes that are just, and it's brilliant. And then you see the next thing, and he's so verbose and physical and overbearing, and you almost can't believe it's the same person. You can't believe it's the same performer.
Yeah. And you know what? The thing with Pat as well is he could do what we were talking about before. He could write something that was poetic and had very deep meanings intertwined in it. And I think that the example that I could think of off the top of my head was him versus Sharon. His introduction to that battle, it's so poetic. It doesn't really belong on a battle rap stage theoretically. It's like, from the cracks in the pavement, I rose, a lion among sheep. And it's like, that really, a lot of that's like, okay, that maybe spoken word gig, it's got meaning to it. But he could do everything. He could joke, he could write bars, he could write things with meaning. That's why he is my personal go. And yeah, if I could do a fraction of what he could do, I think I would have been wildly successful in battle.
Who would you say has been influential on you the most then? Not necessarily within battle rap, but like you as a person approaching performance. Is there anyone you would credit with giving you that push, that encouragement, that belief, or is it largely been of your own volition?
I think I have aspirations of how I want to perform. I think currently it's from my own volition. It's me being me at the moment. But if I were to watch a Tony D and I could see the confidence and I can see how he carries himself, to me that's like, okay, I could take things from him and add that to my own game. In the same way I could watch a Pat Stay and think, okay, that was great. I don't know if I could do that, but I'll try. I'll try that. I'll try something with the same tools as that and see if it works. And I think you have to do that. You have to pick different pieces. That there isn't a battle rapper currently alive who just has nothing that they've seen before and thought, I could do that better. So they've gone and done it. I think the only person you could probably find is probably Twerk. I think Twerk's style is so original and unique that you probably can't trace it back. I mean, I couldn't anyway. You might be able to. I don't know. I personally couldn't. But I think my influences of like performers, I think you'll see that more and more as I continue, and hopefully you'll see the Tony D influence. You'll see the Pat Stay influence, and you'll see the Big K influence. Those sort of things, because those are the battle rappers that I watch. Those are the people who, and I'm ultimately going to be a product of who I watch. Yeah. So yeah.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, when I first started on YouTube, I was a product of Angry Joe, Total Biscuit, the What Culture channel back in the days when they used to cover wrestling and all the rest of the sort of stuff. You can't help but attempt to emulate, but then improve and evolve past those platforms and past those personalities. And it's kind of heartbreaking when you see guys just go and just copy. It really,
Yeah.
like, I get you want to be as successful as they are,
Yeah.
but wouldn't you just want to be you? Wouldn't you just want to,
Exactly.
you
And
know?
you can see when people are taking it too far sometimes. I think you see it a lot in the UK because the UK is ultimately a reflection of the American scene, really. Like you see a lot of guys now, in my opinion anyway, who watch way too much URL and try and emulate it. And what I can't talk because I emulate things I've seen. I think when I do it, I'm trying to tie it in influences that I've got. I'm trying to tie it into me. But I think there's people out there who just watch something and go, okay, I'm just going to write it exactly like that.
I mean, there's a whole generation of creators that just do that for TikTok, brother. They just take they take a soundbite and just dub over it and call it a day. So, it's not surprising or even necessarily lamentable that battle rappers are going to see something that works and try to incorporate it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It crossed my mind then a second ago. You said Total Biscuit, right? You said Total Biscuit, didn't you?
Total Biscuit. Well, again, he's sadly a
Yeah,
creator that's probably going to be lost to the annals of history. But
he passed away as well, didn't he? Total Biscuit, I'm pretty sure.
he passed away after a very public battle with cancer, and that was one that hit me because I heard about him having cancer, and then I kind of came back to his content after he passed, and it was one of those ones where I saw the announcement and I almost couldn't believe it. It's
Yeah.
like he's such a young
In
man.
in some ways, that's harder as well. I think, like, especially when you get more into a person after they're gone. Like my example for that, and it's very similar to what you just said there with Total Biscuit, was for me with Mac Miller. So I wasn't really a Mac Miller fan until he passed away, and then I started listening to his music, and I was like, yeah, this is really good. It's such a shame that he can't continue this. I think, and it happens too often where you only find something that you really like, where you can't have any more of it. It's a nice crossover, I suppose, with like Total Biscuit for you and me with Mac Miller.
And look, and it's a tricky one because again, I understand and appreciate that it's the great debate about performers in their prime versus performers that have an opportunity to burn out or fade away. You never know how they'll be perceived in the annals of history. I guess then a good way to segue this back to you is, again, you strike me as someone that has. I appreciate what you're saying about you've got you've got to mind your own personality and your own demeanor. But like, give me some fandom here for a second. Give me some battle rap fandom in that. What's a big, or what is the definitive what if in battle rap for you? Like, what's something that you wished you could have seen and now can't happen? Or what's the biggest thing that could still happen and you really are rooting for it to happen? Is it an individual battle? Is it an event? Is it a card? Is it where it's going to be held? Is it tell like what's dream match style? You're the booker. Here's the pencil. What are you doing and why?
I think it would be. It's a difficult one because I have so many people who I think would match up well, but then I probably wouldn't. It's one of them where you think, well, it sounds good on paper, but what if it isn't when you get there? So like, I think if Shotty and Tony did a rematch, that would be incredible. But at the same time, what if it doesn't reach the expectations of the first?
I mean, I'm not gonna. I love my uncle to death. He's your uncle and mine. That guy is every battle now. He is quick to say, man, I don't know how much I've got left in me, and it you can tell he means that. He's not saying it to try and angle people like, oh, this might be my last one. Everyone, he's like, man, you don't understand. This is taking its toll on me, man. So you say that, but then you think he'd be up for that. I think he'd get his back up for that properly. Do you know what I mean?
And it's just the thing. And like, as much as I love Moke, and Moke's someone who I've got a lot of time for, and I've spoken to Moke a lot. Tony didn't look tired against Moke. I don't know. He might save something, but like you can't tell. You can't. I've not watched the Tony D battle since probably since he battled Soul. Ironically, like since Tony battled Soul, I have not really seen a Tony D performance where I thought, well, this guy doesn't want to do this anymore. It's different. Like I think Tony D is a battler who says he's coming to the end. Doesn't come across like that. But you've got a performance like a performer like Murder Mook, for example, who Mook doesn't sound like he has any intention of stopping, but isn't putting the performances on. So it's like, well, you know what I mean? Like Mook doesn't want to stop, but probably should. Tony does want to stop, but definitely shouldn't. I think Tony D's got a lot left in the tank. I hope
to God too. And I only get it from the perspective of, from what you've said, I agree. But what I also guess I understand is the only way I can relate to it is, and you're a young man, so I hope you never have to find this out the hard way. Throughout my life, I've had to lose a lot of weight a lot of times, and I know it's possible, and I know I'll feel good when it's done. But I'm getting to that point in my life where I'm like, do you know what? I don't know if I care if I'm a couple of stone overweight. I don't know if I care. And if I did it, I know I'm going to have to put in more than what I'm prepared to put in to get what I think is justifiable for the effort. Because that's what Tony's saying. He's saying, listen, if I come back, this is what I expect. I don't expect anything less than that. So he's committed himself to the prospect that he's going to be Tony D when he rocks up. And I kind of get that. I do. I really do. Yeah. And I think as well, sorry, I completely sidelined myself because there was a question I have to ask someone like yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you an out because this might be a question you asked me to edit out. I'm not sure. This will be an interesting answer. You're now in a position to capitalize on the growing stature of battle rap now that the pandemic's over and you've got multiple promotions.
Yeah.
However, these promotions are now looking to those of the past. I'm thinking of people like Luna C. I'm thinking of people like Amalo and other people who genuinely expressed kind of a reluctance to come back.
Yeah.
How do you feel as someone, right, you're in two minds. I want to be in a card with these guys because I want to share the namespace. I want to be around them, learn from them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're taking up a slot on the card. You want to be in their positions. You want to be the guy that ultimately people build cards around.
Yeah.
How do you feel about some, maybe not all of them, maybe some of them are like, oh, that's great, and what, but how do you feel about some of these returns? And
well, I have to edit this one out, man. No, I'm joking. I'm playing. No, I think.
How do you feel?
There's gifts. There's pros and cons to it. The cons are, like you said, sometimes it doesn't allow for the new crop to outshine the old crop, and that is a problem. But at the same time, you have to think, if the new crop's good enough, it will outshine the old crop anyway, just on the merit of its ability.
In a genre like battle rap, though, where name value and cachet, it's tangible. It's a commodity of sorts. You know what I mean? You're already walking up against the reputation of the guy you're battling, almost.
But at the same time, if you look at Don't Flop circa 2009, like how many of those guys outshine the current crop now? How many maintained their star power? I can only think of maybe O'Shea. From that specific, a lot of them aren't even battling anymore. But if they come, I can think of a great example. So recently, you had the Premier Battles Liverpool card, and you had Sprungy on it. Now a lot of people won't know who Sprungy is, right? But a lot of people know who Reverse is. I'd argue more people know who Reverse is than Sprungy, and you could argue that's maybe on the merit of Reverse's ability. You could argue it's because he's more recent. But I think the recency of it is a massive gift for the new crop, especially like a Luna C, for example. I think Luna C is acutely aware that there are battlers he shouldn't battle currently because of how much the level has gone up. He was doing it when he was battling actively, and that isn't a slight to Luna C because I love watching Luna C battles. But he was very selective of who he battled when he was battling actively. So, for example, everyone wanted him to battle Shotty. That battle never happened. I think there's battles now that Luna goes, I don't see the merit of battling him, or him. And eventually, I think that people clock that. I hope.
So, I'm going to put something to you. I'm going to weasel out of giving my own opinion. And instead of going to proffer Soul. Soul is very much of the opinion that generation exceeds this in not only performing style, but ultimately lyricism and stage presence. That's why he believes that if he were to start his career now, he'd be headlining in 3 battles. Now, of course, that's Time Machine-esque. It's What If-esque, right? So there's no way of knowing definitively because his style might not have translated well in the current era.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a difficult one, because you guys are coming up now in an age where they, like, almost, I think I'm giving credence to your argument there, because I'm saying that when a Lunacy and a Shotty Horror and these guys are coming up, there really isn't that previous generation to overshadow them. They're free to make a name for themselves and cultivate these moments. Whereas they're leaning on that history a little bit to give you guys a bit of shine and a bit of rub. But ultimately, I haven't really seen, except for Tony D maybe, any of these big names battle any of the newcomers. At least it hasn't been that prevalent to me. Like, Georgie Roots is probably the only one that I've seen get some of that rub, some of that shine with Shuffle and with Tony D. Someone like you, though, like, I get that the name value needs to balance out a little bit, but imagine the benefit it would have to someone like yourself to battle someone of that caliber of reputation, if not ultimate skill.
For sure. And you know what, the thing with Soul, I really enjoy watching Soul battles, and I like Soul's outlook on a lot of things in battle rap. And part of me agrees with him that there's a lot of battle rappers now who would get smoked by the older generation. However, I think you also, if you're a Soul, have to put your money where your mouth is and step back into the ring if you're going to make those comments. I think that is the case. You can't be, okay, let's look at it this way. Imagine Mike Tyson now said he could beat up Anthony Joshua. It's fine saying that, but do you know what I mean? Like, cool, sick. What are we gonna do about it then? It's just, I think it's the only way I can respond, because I'm not gonna, because like I say, it's until it happens. It's like, okay, yeah, that's his opinion. But unless he's willing to put his opinion on the line, I don't see why anyone from the new gen should listen to him.
Book it now. Soul versus DubTee on an event near you.
I don't want that smoke.
I'm just playing.
No, I'm just saying. I think that is the case.
I'm caught in two minds like you are, I imagine, where I think that if I'm a performer with a name and cachet, I don't want to burn it to the ground for the good of the scene. I know I want to give something back, but I'm not prepared to be a scalp to the next guy. Unless you know it's definitive baton handing moment. Like, there's moments in battle rap history where you can see, right, now he's the guy. But they're rare. They don't happen all that often. So as a promoter and a performer,
I don't think my generation's had that moment yet. I don't think it has. I know Georgie battled Tony, and it was a very good look for Georgie, but I don't think it was a torch passing moment, because then Tony went and battled the current champion. So it's like you've sort of battled him, but you haven't passed the torch to him. You just give him a look. I think the last time a torch was actually passed in battle rap really was Tony versus O'Shea, because you saw the transition from an old era into the next. So you saw the mum joke era, which is entertaining as anything, into the bar era, and for me that's the last time the torch was properly passed on. And I think it also helps that Tony beat O'Shea as well. I don't think you can really pass the torch until you've beaten your generation. But I think there's also a thing in battle rap. It's like sport. You know how like everyone's dad thinks that his boxer or his favorite footballer is better than the modern day. So my dad's thing is that he thinks that Glenn Hoddle was the best player ever, right? But my argument is, you see, if you put him into any modern team now, he'd look average.
Yes, there's an intangible nature to that argument, because you have to believe that we live in a more advanced time, which means
Yeah.
they have privileges and advantages that previous generations wouldn't have done. So it's all fun to say, yeah, but they had grit and determination, they didn't. I'm like, yeah, so did people 10,000 years ago, but would you bet on them being better than our current generation? They would have been a foot and a half shorter and they'd have eaten mercury for breakfast. I don't think they'd win.
This is the thing, like, and I think that's the big, and like to tie that into a different argument, you've got like people who say that Muhammad Ali would still beat modern heavyweights. It's like, nah, man. He weighed 14 stone, and he's trying to fight guys who are 20 stone. It's not the same thing. Time changes a lot of things.
Well, what I would say is that modern wisdom changes, and sometimes good practices can go out the window just because something new happens. That's why you get trends, man. That's why you have a generation of kids that have a certain style or a haircut or whatever. The older generations think, well, that looks stupid, right? But it's not your trend. It's another generation's trend. You're not meant to get it. It's just different, and we're not saying it's better. We're not saying that I don't know, I'm old, so I don't know what a stylish thing is these days, but a t-shirt with a funny memo on it, okay, fine, it's not better than previous generations, it's just ours.
Yeah.
Whereas in battle rap, you have to believe that this generation has to work harder, if only because battle rap covets originality. You can't get away with saying the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And you're working with less space, because so much shit has already been said. So you're trying to work in that sphere.
But that's why we have to be better. We haven't got much choice in being better, because and this is the thing, battle rap's it's a finite resource, because there's only so many things you can say before you've said something someone else has said. The only way to get away from that is to say it better. Right? And that's the point we'll get to eventually in however many years' time. We'll get to the point where it's very difficult to think of a new concept. So we just have to pick a concept that's been done in the past and do it way better than anyone else has. And we're already getting to that now, I feel like, which is why you see so many style overlaps. So you'll see a lot of people like you said earlier, Dojo, he reminded you of Marlo, right? It's so difficult to be brand new. Like no one's ever done it before in a scene that's been around for however many decades. Yeah, and I think, yeah.
But that's the thing. You would forget that. Right? How do I? Each generation has its own incarnation of the thing that the previous generation had. It's under a different guise. And okay, you want the best argument? Every generation thinks this generation's form of entertainment has within it some evil, megalomaniacal fucking overlord that's ruining your generation. TikTok is poisoning your minds and it's ruining you as people. Right, motherfuckers, y'all thought YouTube was that, and before them, y'all thought MTV was that. And each generation turns out kind of okay. It's fine. They have their downfalls. So the idea that battle rap doesn't contain within it its inherent set of idiosyncrasies and trends that come about each generation is madness, because each generation is going to have to contend with its own problems and its own you have the ability to cultivate a social persona easier than say Tony's, because social media wasn't as prevalent. That's fine, that's an advantage. The other disadvantage to that though is that so can fucking everybody else. So you've got noise to contend with that he did.
And also Tony D's already existed, so his position in the scene, he's always going to be Tony D. There will never be another Tony D. So you have to, whilst we're in a scene that everything's nearly been done, you're also under constant pressure to not be exactly the same as that guy. Because why would I watch you do an impression of that guy when I can just watch that guy? I think that's a very serious problem for some battlers anyway. Some battlers are constantly trying to contend with the fact that, I'm just not going to be as good as the guy that I'm very similar to. And I think that could be a problem going forward, but I think I can avoid that. I think I'm unique enough to avoid it.
I don't know why we picked on Tony D there. He literally teaches kids to write and rap. So I'm sorry for picking on you there, Tony. I apologise profusely, but you're a Spurs fan. You deserve it. Anyways, point being, so let's guide this conversation to a close now, because one of the things I really wanted to ask you when we first sat down to talk is like I say, your observations about the scene in general and where it's going. But let's bring it back to you for a second. What would you say, barriers notwithstanding, and fucking intent, like, again, we've just come through a pandemic and now a potential financial collapse, so I get that the future is far from fucking certain, plus your own future endeavors, you don't know what life's going to throw at you.
Yeah.
But what are your ultimate aspirations within battle rap? Do you want to be a champion of a promotion one day, or do you want to maybe mitigate your eyes on a title and become more of a, not legend, but you know what I mean, like someone who is synonymous with battle rap as that guy? When you see him perform, no matter who he's against, he's going to put on a show.
Yeah. I feel like my opinion on that, it contradicts itself, but it makes sense in my own head. So, of course, every battler wants to be the guy with the belt on his shoulder that everyone's like, oh, he's the champ. But at the same time, I think it's incredible to be the guy who doesn't need the belt, who can just go up there off his own merit. People want to go and see him because they just enjoy his battle raps. I think that is way more impressive. Like guys like Pat Stay. So Pat Stay won the King of the Dot title, but he lost the title. He didn't suffer any popularity decline after that. In fact, he probably got bigger after it because he was just Pat Stay, and you'd watch every battle. I think to be at that point is the peak. That's the top of the mountain where you can just be the guy that people want to see, with or without a belt.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but Shotty and Luna never won titles, right?
No.
So
no, I don't think they did. No.
So there you go. I mean, like, with all due respect, like, I know, Matt has been Premier Battles champ. I know Yunan's been Premier Battles champ. Craft D was Don't Flop champ for a bit. Quill's current champ for Don't Flop. Like, I'm not saying that these guys aren't worthy of championships, but I am saying that a lot of them would give their left nut to touch the popularity of a Luna C or a Shotty Horror, or even a Soul. Like, I get Soul was a long reigning champion, but the fact that he's not champion now wouldn't dampen the performance of Soul.
I don't think he doesn't need the title though, Soul. Especially now. I think if Soul was to return, Soul's return, it's not the ex Don't Flop champion. He's not known for that, really, in my opinion. When I think of Soul, I don't think of the guy who was the champion of Don't Flop. I purely think he's the guy whose writing is A1, who can lead me down a path that I can enjoy watching. I could go and watch Soul versus Ilmac now and still enjoy it as much as I did the first time I watched it. But at the same time, I think there's people out there whose title reigns are like, yeah, okay, that's really impressive. And I think when the title means something, it's great. But I think the title you don't need to have it. I don't think. And I think, I'm trying to think of the best example of it. Like, yeah, so Pat Stay's a good example of it. Shotty's a good example of it. Even Tony. Like, I don't think of Tony as a champion. I just see him as Tony. He's that guy who's that good, who can do anything on a battle rap stage. I think it's just something we've created in battle rap to make it more, I don't know, sellable.
Well, it gives it a hierarchy of some description, so you can funnel people down a road. But ultimately, it's like wrestling in the sense of, if you need to set someone on the path of becoming a champion to get people interested at first, fine. It's probably a good idea to make sure, though, that person has a reason for going. If it's just, well, they're just going after it because no one's going to care. But if someone's got something that an audience can latch onto and say, I kind of want to see him do it. If that's just, I want to prove I'm better than everybody, and that doesn't need to be the title, it's just whoever they put in front of me I want to beat, fine. Yeah. Or if you've got someone like a Shuffle, or someone who just wants to be known as the most entertaining guy, he's not taking himself seriously in any sense of the word, that's fine. And then you've got someone like a Bobby Rex, like I say, who Bobby Rex's deal seems to be now, he just wants people to understand he isn't what they think he is. He is proving a point to everyone in the audience every time he does a performance that he is more dynamic and more of a performer rather than just a guy that froths at the mouth and gets in your face. So the point is, though, you're invested in that journey, whatever it is. And like you say, like with you, for instance, maybe that's the title, or maybe that's just you cultivate a persona people really start gravitating towards.
And do you know what? I would much rather have the latter. I'd much rather just be the guy who people like to watch and can win his battles. I'm not necessarily massively invested in I'm going to be the champion. Of course, it's an aspiration that's there, because I think every battle rapper has that one that has that in their head, like, I am going to be the best in my country. And if you don't have that, you probably shouldn't be doing it. But at the same time, I'm fully aware that you can be successful without that. You don't need that. I feel like the thing with Bobby, like Bobby Rex is a good example of it. For me, Bobby Rex is someone I can watch Bobby and enjoy Bobby Rex's battles. But for Bobby, I think having the title would lift him more. And the reason I think that is because he's already lost to Bizzo. So if he beats Bizzo and becomes the champion, he's then at a level where he can just say, I am this guy. Here's the evidence. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, and I'm not saying Bobby now isn't who he says he is.
But there is a narrative of him ultimately, because that's exactly. I put this to Bizzo in an interview that hasn't been released as of the recording of this interview, where it's like, you understand, right, that not only has he got your battle with him as fuel, he's got this mindset that he's like the Marty McFly in the second Back to the Future. This isn't the timeline that's meant to happen. This is a skewed timeline, and I'm here to rectify it. That's something fans can go like,
rectify
it. Yeah, he can do this. He can rectify it. He's right. That's why he's a battle rapper, and I'm just some scrub. That's you're right. Like that's something fans can go, I want to see if he can do it, and that's something that people can buy into, man.
Yeah, and that sells. That's why the title is good, because you can sell it. But for me, being the level above that is just being able to sell yourself because of who you are, as opposed to the accolades you've got. If that makes sense. Obviously the accolades have something to do with who you are, but I don't think they should always define you. I think the best performers don't let their accolades define them. Like, the best performers out there are just the best performers out there. They're not the best performers aren't always the champion, for example. So Pat wasn't the champion of Canada the whole time. Big K at the moment, who I think at the moment is the best battle rapper in the world. Incredible. He doesn't currently have a championship on a league. He's just who I enjoy watching the most. I'd rather be the guy that people enjoy watching, rather than the guy who can walk around with a title. That's just me anyway. That's just how I view it.
And I couldn't make a case against it. It's horses for courses, and that's one of the things that's great about battle rap, man, is that there's usually something for everybody. It's very rare that you go to an event and you go, right, here's your headline stealer. Here are matches that can maybe steal the card. Here's a couple of, it's very much, and I think it's why Mr. Horror gravitates to it so much. It is professional wrestling-esque in that you can cater it to multiple tastes and you can make it palatable to multiple people. And
the best example of that, I think, if you look at Bray Wyatt as the Fiend, the Fiend didn't need to be the champion.
I think we can all agree that giving him the championship was a choice. It was certainly a choice.
It didn't make any sense. He didn't need it, because he could have just gone off his own merits as a character. And I think that's when you get the best out of people.
But then how are we gonna make a personalized belt to sell? We gotta think about that merch.
How the hell does he do that? Give myself a hernia trying to do a Vince McMahon. Jesus Christ! Sorry for everyone hearing that. I had to hear it in my own headphones, and that was painful.
I can't do my Vince impression. I can't impersonate Vince. Never.
I used to be able to, but then puberty hit, and now I can't fucking go lower than what God intended my voice to be. So
I think everyone could do the Macho Man. I don't think other than that. Yeah,
Macho Man's a different. I can do a Macho Man. Vince is just visceral gravel. He's just down. He's down here, right in the base.
Years of abusing talent.
Macho Man is up here, brother. He's up here.
He's a little. It's almost Rick and Morty-esque, you know what I mean? It's like, we gotta get out of here, Morty. You know, it's a bit, there's gargling involved, whereas Vince McMahon is just, it's just down here and where his heart should be. There's just a hole with nothing in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not that I'm hating on Vince McMahon, you sexual deviant. There you go.
Just years of abusing talent is what's created his voice, I reckon. Just the devil tickling his fucking tonsils all the time.
Man, that's for me. That's wrestling's biggest what if is if his dad recovered from cancer, would he have stopped Vince doing everything he then went on to do? Because that's one of those things where you realize, man, as much as Vince likes to portray himself as this big, strong, self-sufficient guy, he waited until his dad was on his deathbed to do all of this shit because he wouldn't have done it if he hadn't have done. So Billy Big Nuts that he is, you know, he's like, right, so Dad, you're definitely dying. Okay, good news, we're going national. You remember how I told you I wasn't? Yeah, soz. Like, I'm sorry, man. The revisionist history of Vince McMahon is one that people will equate to Walt Disney one day. It'll be one of those ones.
All Vinces in wrestling are like pricks, right? Pretty much. Is there any good Vince in wrestling?
Any Vinces? Well, people. I mean, Russo has his moments.
Briefcase on a pole match.
Listen. Everyone knows. Hang on. Everyone knows if you add something to a pole, it makes a match better.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that. That's a certifiable fact. Just in the same way that if it's in a box, it's automatically over.
If it's in the air, you know what I mean? The match is automatically better. If you have to climb something to win the match, let's go.
I mean, okay then. That's a great question to finish on then, and I'll leave this open for you to kind of use this to signpost it. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite cornet-ism? Well, for me, it's when I noticed Brian Zane, who's a YouTuber. He did a takeoff of Brian Zane reading The Night Before Christmas.
Yeah.
And he had the like that cough that Cornet does fucking slayed me because he once you hear it, you can't unhear when he's in the middle of a tirade. The son of a bitch was doing this, that, and the other. And then he'll carry on. It's like, oh man, that fucking slays me. But like, what do you have a Cornet-ism that really warms your heart and takes you to a happy place?
It's weird that you mentioned that because there's a very specific word that Jim Cornette uses that makes me laugh. It's when he says the word meanwhile.
I thought it was going to be flip it bullshit because he really puts bull in bullshit. You know what I mean?
When you listen to the Jim Cornette sort of Southern state accent, meanwhile, and then he goes on a tirade about what Kenny Omega's done in his last match. Incredible. It's that, and it's when he compares one wrestler to the other. Incredible. He did it with Marco Stunt and Rey Mysterio. He said his exact quote was, he said, people are comparing this little fucking dweeb to Rey Mysterio. That's like comparing the guy who delivers my Chinese food to Bruce Lee. And it cracked me up for about an hour.
I mean, yeah, I would never put Marco Stunt and Rey Mysterio in the same conversation. With all due respect, I get they're both diminutive, but one of these things is not like the other. Like, I'm sorry, like there's
diminutive.
Pretty significant difference between Marco Stunt, who was largely booked as a comedic aftertone in his matches. I mean, I'm not being disrespectful, but I'm just saying, like, Mysterio was heavyweight champion of the world, and it was unironic. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't. There wasn't the Jinder Mahal-esqueness of it. You know what I mean? Where everyone's like, he won. Like, Mysterio, people were genuinely happy for him to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think for sure. I think Cornette is, if you want to laugh at a wrestling opinion, just watch Jim Cornette talk about anything, and you'll probably get a pretty objective opinion. But you'll also be you'll be in stitches about what this guy thinks about things that are good, to be honest. Yeah, he's just a negative guy, but it's funny. Right, on that we can agree. He is,
there's something about someone that can't find anything good to say about something they love that I don't like. I think if you really love something, you kind of have to remember the reason you love it. Like, I know we've talked about some of the negatives of battle rap, but if you said to me tomorrow, do you want to go to a battle rap event? I'm not going just to hate on the thing. I'm going because I want to experience what I love about it. And if there's something bad that happens, like an angry Gemini on crutches yelling at me, scaring me half to death, because look, I'm not gonna lie.
Want action?
He was so like he's diminutive, but he was fucking like I wasn't gonna answer back to him. Like I'm probably twice his size, but I wasn't gonna I didn't want that smoke. Fuck that shit. So like, but that was still part of the experience. I wouldn't change that for the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think and listen, if you want to watch Cornet, I think you have to go in there with an open mind. And you have to go in there expecting to be called an idiot for liking something that he doesn't.
Do you have anyone that you balance him out with, though? Do you have anyone who's positive? Like a Simon Miller, I like, but I think Simon Miller's too positive. He's a bit sugary for my taste in terms of like he's relentlessly positive, and I don't trust someone without a dark side. I don't trust someone who's like. You know, he might be lovely in person and online, but he goes home and kicks kittens to balance it out. Like, I trust that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a balance, to be honest. It's probably why I don't really like wrestling anymore. It's probably because Cornet ruined it for me. But at the same time, yeah, I think he's a decent person to listen to. Because if you can disagree with him, but you can also appreciate where he's coming from. Yeah.
You can't argue with his experience and what he's given the business. So on that front, we can. And again, Al Snow is an interesting one because when I interviewed him, I largely agree.
Crazy. You spoke to Al Snow?
I spoke to Al Snow. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was a hard interview because it was very much like talking to my dad. He was not in the mood for any of my bollocks and very much of the opinion that I should get the fuck on with things rather than waffle. But he's another one where I can respect his wisdom and I can respect his opinion, but I also observe a man who is unwilling to accept that the world has changed and that you do need to take on board that even though what you're saying was right, it might not be right now. There might be some conventional wisdom to that, but it might not be. Sometimes you've got to buck trends, man. I feel like sometimes you just got to look at where the wind's blowing rather than saying it shouldn't be blowing that way. You know what I mean?
I feel like with Al Snow, it might just be my age. To me, Al Snow is the guy that just carries around the mannequin head, right? I don't think I've ever seen an Al Snow match. I might have watched him on like Impact in like 2015 or something, but I just wasn't around.
He was working Rock and Triple A. Oh, okay, fine. If you've never seen an Al Snow match prior to that, the one that's the easiest one is the Rumble 2000. He enters. He set a precedent. He was one of the few people to enter before the timer.
Was that the one that had Mr. Perfect return? Or am I thinking of a different one?
That was 2001.
Okay, so I'm like, yeah. Okay.
So he was close because 2000 is remembered as the it's one of the more balanced Rumbles because it starts off with Farouk, but obviously I don't know him by them. His last name is Simmons. And Matt Hardy, and then Jeff Hardy comes in, and they wrestle each other, and then fucking Drew Carey comes in, and then Kane comes in, and then Honky Tonk. So I could list these guys because it's such a memorable Rumble, but it's also the hardcore Rumble. So they have this section in the middle where they go, wait. You can hit people with shit? Well, dude, it's no disqualification. Do what you want, man.
That should be every Rumble. I don't see why that isn't every Rumble.
We don't do hardcore anymore, brother.
But come on now.
We don't do hardcore because there might be blood, and we can't have that. Not in violence.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're watching people get flung around on their head.
You do, but you don't. They don't bleed, so it's fine.
But I think it's hilarious like that. You know, like in the UFC. Where a commentator is like, you shouldn't swear, or boxing, where people swear and then interviews after. So you just watched some guy knock 10 barrels of shit out of his opponent, and then you're telling him not to swear on the mic after. It's like, yeah, you can beat the shit out of people, but don't use the bad language.
If there's ever a time where that was applicable, it was when it was the Nate Diaz call out before McGregor, where he's got this fuck off massive laceration over his eyebrow, and he's just going, I'm coming for everything. I built everything and you took everything from me, mother. I'm coming for you, motherfucker. And we're live on Fox. And you go, mate, like you just said, you've just seen him bounce someone's head off a canvas for 10 minutes. I think the damage to your young, impressionable audience has been done.
There's so many contradictions in MMA, though. Like, you have fighters thank God after they win. I think that's so fucking funny. It's it cracks me up every time. Every time it said, Yoel Romero used to do it every fight. It's like, Yoel...
He's the soldier of God.
You are aware of what you've just been doing for the last 25 minutes, right? The guy who you just demolished is currently sat there with his dreams broken, his family wondering he's okay, and you're thank God.
And I love him, and I go to his ass. You just go, yeah, but dude, I think it's. I totally see where you're coming from, but there is this weird segregation of ideas where, in the ring, we'll let the violence go, but once the fight's over, right? Okay, now settle down, lads. Come on, let's be grown-ups about this. You know what I mean? It's like. Dude, if you've ever been in a street fight or in a really violent or threatening violent situation, you don't just flick back into normal. Your adrenaline is still firing like a motherfucker, man. It takes time to settle down.
Especially if you've just been in like a 5-round war. And they're trying to censor what you're saying. Like, Nate Diaz is the best example, like you said. Like, he's got cuts all over his face. He's just been beat up for 5 rounds and miraculously won. Because that's 95% of Diaz's fights. Right, and you're trying to tell him what he can and can't say. Nah.
Which is half of his marketability in the first place as well. It's like, man, this guy speaks in a way that no one else does. And people love him for it.
I think it's so sad that Nick Diaz missed out on his prime because of the drug ban. Yeah.
Which in retrospect, isn't there something really fucking hypocritical about the UFC having now effectively got their own weed brand? Like, there's something that's like, I don't know if there's a monetary value you can put on the time you took from him. I'm sure he'd appreciate a check, though.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it was even sadder when he tried to come back against Lawler. He just looked terrible. It looked like he was in water the whole fight, and it's like, this guy has been robbed of a career because he had a spliff. Come on. Let's not dick around here. Let's just
But I think we can all agree though that probably it wasn't that. He was still in a generation of the UFC where they hadn't really cottoned on to the idea of fighter star power. They were still very much of this opinion that boxing and win streaks and finish it. Look, Sergio Pettis is the prime example. He kicked someone in a way that they thought was marketable. Didn't even knock the guy out with it, right?
Yeah.
But he didn't say boo to a goose. He's the guy you can put on a cereal box. You tell me Nick Diaz is appropriate to put on a cereal box.
Well, maybe in Stockton.
In Stockton, I mean, you'd sell out, I suppose. But like, the point is, like, he was a guy whose face didn't fit, and he's a testament to. We do still. I mean, I've gotten into the themes of Moneyball recently, and one of the themes of Moneyball is how we value people and things in terms of what our biases are in terms of disregarding something. And you look at someone like Nick Diaz, like you say, he could have had a Hall of Fame worthy career had it not been for the fact that he was the kind of guy that would call up GSP for cheating when, fair enough, he might have been, but but you don't understand. GSP's our cash cow. Like, we want him to be something, and you're hurting that, so we're gonna hurt you.
I've angered so many people with my opinions on like GSP. Like in terms of my GOAT list, like, I think everyone's got a UFC GOAT list. So like, I always have GSP as my GOAT, and I think people don't like that because I have GSP at number 1, and I have no Khabib on my list. So I have it goes like Demetrius.
He doesn't crack the top 5?
Nah.
Whoa!
No, but like, you act like that's so incredible. But like, let's sit and break it down, right? So if you look at my other list, I've got Demetrius Johnson. I've got John Jones. This is in no particular. I mean, sort of. So DJ John Jones, Anderson Silva. My number one is GSP. I struggle with my number two, but I can't bring myself to put Khabib in there. I just can't. I can't do it.
Is it because of a lack of perceived opponents then?
Yeah.
Or stretch of his title reign?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's also because if you really dig deep into Khabib Nurmagomedov, it's the amount of pullouts, it's the weight cut, it's because he's naturally 180 and he cuts 25 pounds to fight a welterweight, lightweight, sorry. So it's like, come on now, so he's a weight bully, and his style is using his weight against people. So it's like, I don't know, man.
Well, wasn't it? It was Gleason Tebow who gave him the most trouble, and he's arguably one of the greatest weight bullies of all. He cut 40 pounds to get down to his fighting weight, and you go, what are you, fucking hollow? What the fuck are you made of? But in that fight, Khabib struggled to get the takedown in that, and he was, probably physically outmatched. But
it counts for something as well. So if your opponent weighs more than you naturally, it's difficult. So if let's say you're a Dustin Poirier, who started his career at featherweight, so at 145, then moved up to lightweight, you're probably 155 is probably, I think Dustin Poirier probably walks around at 165, 170, right? So him fighting at 155 is pretty much his natural weight. But he's fighting people who rehydrate up to middleweight, and it's like, is that fair? Is that advantage fair? And that's why he's not on my list, because I feel like he had an advantage against 99% of his opponents. That wasn't just skill based. Like if you look at guys like Demetrius Johnson, he's on my list because of how great he was, one of the best title runs of all time. John Jones is on my list because it's John Jones. GSP is on my list because he's GSP. Anderson Silva's on my list because he's Anderson Silva. I struggled to find a fifth fighter to go on that list. I refuse to put Khabib there.
I mean, I get where the argument would be where against it because of the weakness of the divisions plural, but Amanda Nunes I would proffer because she had a journey of sorts, and I get that the Rousey chapter is one that can be debated backwards and forwards because it highlighted that changing of the guard and the stepping up of the levels. I get that, but you also have to appreciate that MMA is a weird one because it's in that battle rap judging phase where people don't really know what makes a GOAT yet, because with all due respect, the sport's not old enough to have a history and lineage that rivals boxing or football, where you've got dynasties and reigns that kind of define eras. They don't really exist yet.
With MMA, it's not all time based. So in boxing, like we can go back and say Muhammad Ali is the greatest fighter of all time, right? Because enough time's been where we can see no one's matched him, really. But so in MMA, if you look at UFC in the 90s, you could not have any of those guys as your greatest of all time. You just couldn't. You're going to put Tank Abbott and your top UFC fighters of all time? It's like, nah.
It depends on how you rank great, because I mean, Randy Couture gets overlooked these days because he has losses and he didn't compete. Yeah. But the other thing you have to remember, right, is Randy Couture is subject to that narrative that we discussed earlier. He's not on good terms with the UFC, so he doesn't get spoken about. And the one man I would put forward is, right, you've always got to be careful when you're entering the GOAT argument, because I think subjectivity is worse when basically a monopoly judges the conversation. They tried pushing Usman as a GOAT for a bit.
Nah.
And no one bought that shit except for the UFC, who were peddling it, and now UFC are peddling other narratives like, oh, well, Francis was scared. He didn't want to face Jones, and that's why we released him. Neither of those things are objectively true.
Yeah. It's like, in an ideal world, I have Fedor as my fifth man. In an ideal world, because Fedor Emelianenko should be on a GOAT list.
But you're going to say he didn't compete in the UFC, so it's difficult to actually judge him against what we know to be a standard, right?
We can't say he's fought the best fighters in his weight division. We can't say that. So he can't really be on the GOAT list. You see everyone else on my list, you name me one fighter who any of those guys ducked or dodged or didn't fight. You can't name me one. I can tell you a guy who Khabib ducked, and it sounds ridiculous now, but at the time, no one wanted to fight Tony Ferguson. Now, right, he's a bit of a joke now. But
Oh, it's always different after the code has been. But look, when Tony Ferguson is out there kicking lampposts into oblivion and doing that weird, what was it? Was it a weighted medicine ball or something where he does the flip and then throws the medicine ball into a combination? Like, no one was doing the things he was doing. He was unorthodox, but then he takes his first loss, and then suddenly, that's how you beat him. Yeah, it's always a different conversation.
You've got to remember, prior to that Justin Gaethje fight, he'd been going back and forth with Khabib for 2 years, trying to get the fight on.
I mean, he was unofficial lightweight champion for a bit, wasn't he? He was interim belt holder, I think.
Khabib just refused to fight him. So Khabib missed weight a couple of times, then he got cancelled a few times, and it's like Khabib didn't want to fight him. So that's why he's in on my GOAT list.
So could a question be posed then, when discussing GOATs? If you're looking at bodies of career, that's fine. Could you also go, and this might be the more interesting conversation because this is really hard to judge. Peak. Right. When GSP is his peak, right, who could he, and then you gauge like, right, maybe not over the span of a career, but I think we can all agree that John Jones's peak is not quite him now. He's plateaued a little bit, or he's coming off. But at his peak, he's out wrestling wrestlers, he's out jiu-jitsuing jiu-jitsu players, and he's outboxing and outstriking kickboxers. And you go, the fuck is this guy on? Like, he's doing things he shouldn't be able to do.
I mean, I think what is he on was a very good question.
It's a question that we can ask ourselves. But then again, dude, like, the more you watch professional sports, the more you wonder, right. And again, you may not know this because you're a younger man. I'm 33 years old now. I'm acutely aware of what my body can and can't do from an athletic perspective. And I know that seeing a lot of these guys push 40 and still be as athletic as they are, you go, it's prayers and fucking vitamins, is it? Get the fuck out of here with your prayers and vitamins, bitch.
I mean, and I think it becomes even more obvious when you see, like, when Mike Tyson did his return against Roy Jones. He admitted, he openly, I'm on TRT. I'm on fucking rocket fuel for this fight. So, you know what I mean? If he can come out and admit that, fine. Vitor is another good example. Vitor Belfort. He nearly killed Mike Bisping on the juice.
He's the one who wrecked his eye.
Yeah. And he was on it. He was on it at the time, openly.
Well, he's again. They label it as like almost like an era of, oh, that's TRT Vitor, and look, there goes Ubereem. Like, wait, how can you have like Super Saiyan versions of fighters by name? Like, that's such a weird thing for MMA to have, but it is a thing in MMA where we're like, look, guys, let's just all be honest. We know that some of them were on stuff at certain points. Like, it just was a thing, and we just kind of have to wrestle with the fact that Brock Lesnar came back, didn't do any drug testing, did a test after the fight, got pinged, but too late, fights happened. So
I remember hearing Joey Diaz talk about that fight
on the Joe Rogan when he's talking about the Brock Lesnar. He's not just taking fucking D-ball, he's taking shit that makes your fucking head grow. You know, it's like, well, I mean, he's not wrong.
Give him Steel Pick. Steel Pick will rip his fucking head off.
Yeah, whatever the fuck his name is. Like, see, he's got that Croatian blood in him. You know,
it's like, dude, what are you fucking talking about, man? Like, what the fuck is he talking about?
He's great. But yeah, like, in an ideal world, I can have on my list as my fifth man either Fade or I can't justify it, which is why he isn't on my list. But I want to have Chael Sonnen on my list. He's done nothing to deserve to be on my list, but I want him on my list.
He's the most quotable fighter besides Conor McGregor there's ever been, because he's
I think he's better than Conor. He's so much better than Conor. Like, because he could do it just like that. There was never a stumbled word, never nothing. It was perfect. The bad guy, the icon. Oh, come on now. Peace on him.
I did a whole video impersonating him because it was so easy. It was literally, you can make up anything, and so long as you end a sentence like you're asking a question and then just say, so we're all agreed. He's going to go into this fight and he's going to do this. Okay, great. And then you just move on, like before you've even given the other person to give an opportunity to go, wait, hang on, you're talking shit. But he moves on too quickly for you to bait him. He's a power unto himself. Same with Ariel Hawani. Their personality is very set.
What was it about? He told the story about Big Nog.
Oh, the feeding him the carrot thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, I genuinely didn't believe that they had computers in Brazil. I didn't know that.
But then Colby stole his blueprint a little bit, and Colby tried to do it.
But he put him on the part. Like, people forget, before Colby did the whole Colby thing, he was on. He was one of Chael's first guests, and Chael's there just sort of feeding him and letting him kind of run with the ball a little bit.
Yeah.
And fair play. I don't think anyone's buying the Colby thing anymore.
But the thing is with Sonnen as well. The reason Sonnen was so great was he could just talk. He didn't have to over-egg it. I don't think I've ever heard Chael Sonnen swear, to be honest. I can't think of a time. I can tell you 5 McGregor quotables that are just that.
Yeah, well, McGregor goes... I mean, look, let's all be honest. I know it was for promotion, and, he probably doesn't mean half of it, but that Khabib press conference was dark. It was a dark press conference, you know what I mean?
Especially if you research the things he's saying. So it was when he did the face-off with Khabib, and he starts talking to Khabib's manager. And
Ali Abdulaziz, you rat. I know. How's Jonah or Jonas?
He said, how's Noah?
Noah, yeah. And it's like
so dark.
Dark. Very dark.
It's like, I googled it, and it's like Noah's his son that he abandoned or something.
MMA on Point, a channel I follow, they did a breakdown of the press conference because they're like, guys, there's a lot that McGregor said there that you should really know what he's saying, and they broke that shit down. And it's like, like when he's like, I'm gonna do this for the Chechenian people, and it's like, why did he reference Chechnya? And you look into it, and it's like, oh, they've got a war going on with the Dagestanis. What the fuck? Like, dark shit.
And he said, the thing is with McGregor, he didn't need to say. I mean, it makes him look a bit of a dick for when he says all the things and then he gets battered.
But do you think though that that's because he knew that perception-wise, in terms of current like he was off the back of a Mayweather loss. Like you can't argue against an undefeated record in terms of who do people think is going to win. Well, Khabib gets the nod at least because he's off the back of a loss.
And maybe Conor knew that. He probably knew in his head that this is a fight that I'm probably not the best equipped to win. He probably believed in himself, but I don't think he would have said, I'm going to win this every single time. There's no way I can lose this. Because he knows. I think if you fight Khabib, you know that there's a possibility that he gets hold of you and then it's done. But at the same time, that's why I think he leaned so far into the trash talk, because in his head, and this is what I was talking to someone about this not long ago, the way he beat Jose was how he tried to beat Khabib. Because Jose Aldo, I personally think, beats McGregor probably 9 times out of 10. I think he's a better fighter overall. And to be honest, he could be on my GOAT list. I think the reason he lost that fight is purely mind games.
And I think that steamed right forward, didn't
and that isn't what Jose does. That isn't what Jose does, by the way, for record. If you watch Jose, he's a very technical, very good fighter. He doesn't just walk into a shot 13 seconds into a fight, usually. I think that's what he thought Khabib would do. He thought, I could piss this guy off to the level where he just runs at me. And that didn't happen.
I mean, it did. It just didn't happen until after the fight, and Khabib decided to pick a fight with 50 people.
Yeah, I remember seeing he fly kicked them. He tried to drop kick Dylan Dennis in the crowd.
He jumped the cage and then flew foot first into a crowd of like 20 people. And the best image of that for me was the image after, where he's got like 3 people on each arm, and he's like Clubber Lang at the end of the first round in Rocky 3, where he's just being pulled away from a fight that he's desperate to jump back into. And then he's at the press conference afterwards going, You're still all talking about this? That happened like 10 minutes ago. Come on, let's move on. Like, dude, you started a brawl. Like, no, we're going to talk about this for a while.
So that's my thing with Khabib, because it's not just that because I appreciate how good he is, but I don't think I like Khabib.
But shouldn't that stand in an MMA context? Because he bullied MMA fighters. Like, there's something about that's intimidating, that has to carry some cachet, surely.
At the same time, I don't like John Jones, but he's still on my GOAT list. I don't think I can't avoid putting Jones on my GOAT list because he's beaten for everyone.
And he's also a complex character as well. He's not just a bad guy. He is the guy that walks into a riot and tells kids to go home. Like,
yeah, exactly. But he's also there's an element of him where you think, I don't know if I like this guy.
A bit of a fuck up. Yeah, there's an element of his yeah, look, I think we've all, whenever we think of John Jones, that ESPN interview where he's all clean cut and happy and all the rest of it, and suddenly it's, hey pussy, you still there? Like,
yeah.
Like, and people see that and they go, wait, so this is, with all due respect, that's what people don't get about Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua's that kind of character where he's got a very defined public persona. But if you get him backstage, I guarantee you that's one nasty piece of shit, because that's where he came from. He had to be. Jones is the same, man. He's not even the oldest of the Jones brothers. Like, he got picked on as a kid.
What was it? It was I saw a video of John Jones' big brother, and I thought, see, if this guy was in the UFC, holy shit, he's scary. He's got longer legs and longer arms than John Jones.
NFL player though, isn't he? So it's not like he's not making money.
Poor career choice though. If your brother's in this sport and he's smaller than you and you're more naturally, imagine being more naturally gifted than John Jones, and not being an MMA fighter like he is. I think you're a fool, to be honest.
It's a bit like the Patara thing, isn't it? Like he was a kickboxer for a long time, comes into MMA and basically walks it because he's just so much more. Yeah. He's just so much bigger and more robust than everybody else, and Izzy's the only person that can touch him so far. Man, it's mad that that's a thing. Be interesting. Interesting. The more he toys with going up to light heavyweight and things like that, because he's big enough. I just wonder whether or not his power will translate.
Well, I watched Pereira fight. So he fought Jan Blachowicz at light heavyweight,
and he made a bit of an easier deal than Izzy did. But
yeah, he did. You know. But at the same time, I question. So if Alex Pereira fights maybe a Yuri Prohaska or a Jamal Hill, but I think both of those guys give him a hard night, especially Yuri because of how weird he is and how he throws weird elbows and spinny shit and all that. I don't think Pereira would enjoy that. Definitely not.
It'd be an interesting night for him, considering that. I mean, because the other thing that people forget about Prohaska is that he went blow for blow and ground and pound style with Glover Teixeira. Like, and that's a guy who's going to choke you out. So why the fuck would you want to take things to the floor?
Yeah,
he was happy to do that. No, granted, he's not a specialist in that arena, but the fact is that light heavyweight could do with that style of rivalry. It could do with that kind of.
I think light heavyweight and heavyweight are the worst divisions in the UFC. Probably. Middleweight's worse than light heavyweight, but I still think heavyweight is like awful. I think if with heavyweight, you just have to be dumb enough to try it. And I think you could probably get. There's no skill in the heavyweight division other than John Jones, Aspinall, and maybe Cyril Gane. Really.
And you've seen the disparity between the levels of a Gane and a Jones. So you go, right, well, where is the competitive edge? And
I mean, Derek Lewis was a successful heavyweight.
But we can all agree, technically limited in he wants to just punch you in the face and charge you, and that's about it. And
he got to be a top 5 UFC heavyweight on that basis.
He fought Ngannou on his rise, so like, there's not really much of a bigger position to put him in.
When did Ngannou show ability until prior to his last fight? When did Ngannou show any ability?
He was really good at throwing his hands in the general direction of his opponents. I agree. And look, and this is where it's interesting that you can try and be a well-honed performer as much as you want, but sometimes certain people capture the imagination, and Ngannou sending poor Alistair Overeem's chin into orbit is one of those moments in UFC history that doesn't matter in context. It actually meant very little. It wasn't for a title. It wasn't for a #1 contender spot or anything. It was just watch these big beefy boys throw their mitts at each other, and my God, what has he done to him?
I remember watching him versus Jairzinho Rosenstrike, right? And he literally runs forward and flails his arms in his direction and knocks him spark out. And it's like, what is this then? Because I've just watched I've just watched Masvidal throw a flying knee, and I've just watched Max Holloway fight Volkanovski, and they've had a technical great fight. And then I'm watching you run forward and throw punches with no technique, and they just land, and it's game over.
Same promotion that booked CM Punk, so you can't. It's horses for courses because they think that's going to sell. Sorry,
he should go back. He should go back to MMA. Like from the stories I'm hearing, all he wants to do is physically fight. So if he wants to physically fight, I reckon we just put him in there and watch him get his fucking head smashed in.
All I'd say about CM Punk is, because obviously I don't know enough about the backstage stuff, and this would be interesting to get your take as someone who's attempting to build a public persona, but also be respected backstage.
Yeah.
These industries often cry out for mavericks and people that do speak to fans and stuff. The problem is, man, like that comes at a price. Like with all due respect, does the UFC like how McGregor handles everything? No.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I think guys like McGregor and CM Punk, I think they're at a stage now where they have such an inflated sense of their own importance. It's like McGregor hasn't fought, albeit because of his injury. But McGregor hasn't fought since early 2022, if I'm correct. Yeah, but the UFC doesn't need him. In the same way that AEW or any wrestling promotion doesn't need CM Punk. But they both believe they're such assets to where they can do whatever they want. In my view anyway, because from what I've heard from Punk at All In, he just had a different opinion than someone else and assaulted them on that basis. So it's like, does this guy really have a space? Is there room for him in modern day wrestling? Probably not. And that's sad because I'm a big CM Punk fan and I've liked a lot of what he's done. But at the same time, I don't think he's cut out for the modern day wrestling, to be honest.
It's a difficult one. And look, all I can say at the moment is that I'm grateful that we had a CM Punk MJF feud, because I really think that feud is going to cement MJF as a future star, not only of AEW, but, and people won't like me saying this, but Roman's going to have to stand aside sooner or later. I get that people are pushing the Cody thing, but if I'm WWE, I try and hold off until MJF's contract is up, and I have MJF turn up at the Rumble, and then I have him beat Roman at Mania through some underhanded bollocks, so you can turn Roman face when he goes away for a bit, so he can come back as a face, and you have MJF as the cowardly chicken shit heel that he can be, running roughshod of WWE.
Because I love MJF. For someone who self-admittedly hates a lot of wrestling, I love MJF. I think he's great. But this is what I think would happen. I don't think he would be as good in WWE. Like the way I look at it,
it does depend on how he's utilized, for sure.
So if you look at Goldberg in WCW and then Goldberg in WWE, it's not the same. It's not the same thing. In the same way, I don't think MJF in AEW, because the amount of creative control he appears to have in AEW would not be the same in WWE, especially if he's going to go for the title.
Sure, but you would concede the point though that the gift that's going around at the moment with Samoa Joe pushing MJF, that happened in NXT. Triple H controlled NXT. Vince McMahon, look, I don't care if he steals your soul when he looks into your eyes. He can't go on forever. And when he passes, or when he finally gets sent to prison for the sexual misconduct that he definitely did, Triple H has to take the reins, and at which point you would trust Triple H with someone like an MJF, because with all due respect, Bloodline, it might now be on Vince's time, but it was started on Triple H's time.
Yeah. But at the same time, if you look at Triple H, there's people who he self-admittedly doesn't like, that everyone did like. Like, again, going back to Punk, now we can look back and think, okay, maybe he was like that in WWE as well. Maybe he was as much of a nightmare as he appeared to be. But Triple H didn't like him. And when everyone loved CM Punk, Triple H didn't like CM Punk. So his judgment, as much as it's good now, and we've watched how many good things he's done, he's not, you know what I mean? He's not perfect. And there's every chance that he could fuck up MJF.
It's possible, but I think MJF would, in the same way almost Cody Rhodes has. Cody Rhodes was limited by the fact that he had a pectoral injury, but I would argue in the long run that may have paid dividends, because it created such a, it basically paid off with the last good Hell in a Cell match that we've seen. in
Yeah.
fucking forever.
Yeah.
MJF is a talent you can't afford. Look, I get a Nakamura or I get a Bobby Lashley because they've got problems to work out. With MJF, all you need to do... Look, they're about to build a storyline on a push. Just a guy pushing another guy. That's it! And you know MJF can make that work. He can make it deeper than it actually is.
And that's why he's so good, though. Like,
Exactly, and that's why WWE, if they had any sense, and this is where we may agree on this, because WWE don't always have sense, you don't need to book him into oblivion. You go, right, here's your opponent, here's your angle. Can you make this last 3 months to SummerSlam? Can you get us to the Royal Rumble with something? And you just fucking let him do it.
Yeah. But this is my thing. I lost all trust in WWE when I didn't think they used Finn Balor correctly. I didn't think they used Balor correctly, and I didn't think they used Johnny Gargano correctly.
Yep. I'd go on with those. With both of them, though, I know they had their reservations about size because they are not diminutive, but when compared to the rest of the roster, they were certainly lacking in that stature that WWE tends to favour.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think probably the best moment WWE-wise in the last 10 years was probably when Daniel Bryan won the titles at WrestleMania 30.
100%.
And Daniel Bryan isn't a big guy at all. And he was against two big guys. I think sometimes you have to have that payoff of the underdog sometimes. And I think Johnny Gargano specifically is the perfect underdog because he's so good. And this is why I don't like wrestling, because I feel like my guys should always be the best. And they're not. So
NXT did this. NXT did it okay, and I appreciate that NXT is not now what it once was. It had its moment, and it's now gone. But for me, one of the seminal moments was the War Games, where Kevin Owens came back. Like that showed you what NXT. Sorry, that showed WWE what it could be if it was booked correctly.
For sure.
But it's relentlessly partisan. It's if we're gonna, we have to con you out of your money. We're gonna sell you on a WrestleMania where Cody Rhodes finishes the story, and then we're gonna beat him.
Yeah,
thanks for your money, fuckers.
I still don't get why they didn't pull the trigger on that. To be honest, I don't think that it's going to be another year before they pull the trigger on that. Probably
because they're effective at storytelling. Sorry, they're effective at narrative manipulation, man. Because I can't find a single wrestling fan now that would admit they thought Cody was going to win. They're all telling me, "Oh, it was clear Roman was always going to win."
No, it wasn't. I was completely convinced, because in my head, Roman doesn't need the belt. And that was what I was running with the whole time. I thought maybe this is where the bloodline splits up, and this is where, as a result of that splitting up, Cody steals the win. That's what I thought would happen. So he's finished the story, but you haven't killed off the bloodline story.
Yeah, you make it more about Roman's... I get what you're saying, he doesn't need the belt, but Roman's intentions towards the belt then becomes clear in terms of, oh, I'm just using you to get what I want, rather than what he always peddled, which is, no, I'm the head of the table, it's about family, and we're all part of the same bloodline, rather than I'm Smaug sitting on a pile of gold, and that's all I care about.
It would have been so easy for them to do that as well. It would have worked so much better, I think, anyway. Because what's Cody doing now?
I know he came off his feud with Lesnar, which they designed to try and give him more legitimacy, I guess. And then there was this weird backwards and forwards with Seth Rollins, because Seth Rollins is the world champion now, and it's like, look, I've got a belt and you don't. You know, and with all due respect to Cody Rhodes, I get that he was lent on for a period for his ability to cut promos, like, so what do you want to talk about? And every promo, people would find themselves enjoying it. But dude, that wears thin after a while. People will start seeing through that shit.
Yeah, I think with Cody and Lesnar, like, him beating Lesnar for me doesn't hold the same weight now as what it would have done if he'd beat Lesnar 2014.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because who hasn't beat Lesnar that he's feuded with now? I think Lesnar's probably lost his last 3 or 4 feuds now.
Oh yeah, well, because I think Lesnar is very much on his way out in terms of his cachet. Well, look, his his value to the company is as this immovable object, not the unstoppable force anymore. He's Goro to the next Shang Tsung. You know what I mean? He's not the final boss, but he's the head honcho almost, and that's fine because he's been doing it long enough. But you're definitely right. He doesn't beating Lesnar now isn't guaranteed to win because Drew McIntyre went over Lesnar. Cody Rhodes has gone over Lesnar. Reigns has gone over Lesnar. I think even Bobby Lashley went over Lesnar at one point. You know, he's not the final boss anymore.
No, he's not. But I think the Cody Seth feud could have been good if they'd have done it. I don't know if they're still doing it. This is how much I don't pay attention to WWE because I only know that Roman Reigns has still got the bloodline things coming on. And I know that Jey Uso returned 2 weeks after saying he quit WWE.
And I imagine you only know the Reigns thing because you're just guessing, well, he's not dropping it unless it's SummerSlam, Rumble, or Mania.
Well, yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. They're not just going to stop doing the bloodline thing on a SmackDown. So it's like, yeah. But at the same time, eventually you have to pull the trigger on it. You have to. And there's a lot of guys in that. And to be honest, I don't see how they can split the bloodline apart without burying one of the people in it. I don't see how all of them could benefit. To be honest, the person who's most likely to die off of the back of the bloodline is probably Solo Sikoa. I think he sort of needs the bloodline at the moment because the Usos both existed outside of the bloodline. Roman Reigns obviously existed outside the bloodline. So did Paul Heyman. What is Solo Sikoa going to do outside the bloodline?
It depends on what they book him as going forward. He's booked as the sort of the main heavy, I suppose. So it's that thing of, can you then segue him into a program for the US title or the Intercontinental? Because you don't segue him straight into a personal feud because people don't know enough about him. You need to let him go through the ringer a little bit. You know what I mean? Because they did that with Reigns. You know, people forget that Reigns had a long Intercontinental title run before he went back to the world title, and even then it was still, cheer him, you morons. Like, it wasn't well booked.
Yeah. That's the example again. I don't like being told what to cheer for. It annoys me. Just don't tell me what's good. Let me come to that conclusion. And they were pushing Roman so hard. It's the same way they're pushing LA Knight now. It's like I don't get me wrong. I like elements of LA Knight, but I don't need to be told that he's good every week. So just relax. Okay, I'll get there eventually.
You do, again, I know, again, this is before your time, but commentary used to talk about what the guy was up to. They didn't really focus on, oh man, he's amazing. It was, here comes The Rock and he's going to talk about this and oh my god, what's he going to do next? Not, hey man, what you need to know about this guy is he's incredible. Like, you let people find that out for themselves, and you try and give them enough reason to care. That's it. And you let them go and either prove it or they fall on their face, and that's that. Yeah.
But at the same time, I think the older generation of commentators are now, they're not good at all.
There's a season for everything, brother. Season for everything.
Did you watch the All In? Were you at All In, or did you watch it from home?
So I was supposed to be there. I had to give up the ticket. I apologize to the person who was going to go with me. It just didn't pan out, but I was supposed to be there.
You're a dick for not going to All In with that person, by the way.
Sorry?
I said you're a dick for not going with that person.
I am.
I'm playing.
It was history, you know.
No, but so I watched the All In from home, right? And I heard Jim Ross ask if Freddie Mercury was in the building. And it's like, how is this guy still doing commentary?
I can't argue with the fact that Jim Ross has had his day. He is a man who loves it too much. So if anyone cares about his reputation, they would tell him it's time, and you need to just accept the fact that it's. I get you don't want to. I get you love it, and I get you want to stick with it. But it's time, man.
Yeah. Same with Taz. Taz hasn't been doing it for a particularly long time, but I don't think Taz is that good at being a commentator. I prefer Taz as a wrestler. That's just me. I think he bores me on commentary. I think guys I don't get me wrong. I have a love-hate relationship with Michael Cole. because Michael Cole was good and bad simultaneously.
We all have to sympathise with. You've seen the clip of him where he's talking to Vince, right?
What, through the headset and he's like getting shouted at?
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's the real him. I've always thought of it that way. Is like what we see of him is this horrific amalgamation of what WWE wants him to be and what he is.
He is the propaganda machine of the WWE. The commentators they are the propaganda
But you
machine.
see that the clip where he's like, "Man, I'm saying the same shit over and over again. Do you really want me?" Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I totally understand, sir. Like he's literally just. Oh man. Oh, God bless him. I feel so bad for him.
Just imagine Vince on the other end of the headset. Listen here, you son of a bitch. On the other end of the microphone.
Imagine having that man like here every Monday and every Friday and every other Sunday for 20 years, just calling you every fucking name under the sun and telling you exactly what to do.
Yeah. He's called Gunther now, by the way. He's like...
You're not putting enough emphasis on the W's when you're saying WWE. Like, dude, just let the man call the fucking show.
But that's why he's the man, though, isn't it? I suppose if he didn't work, he wouldn't be as big as he is. I suppose there's something in it. There's something in being as much of a dick. There must be. I mean, find me one successful, like ultra successful person who doesn't have some traits we think you're a bit of a dick.
Ultra successful person who doesn't have traits of being a dick.
Like
the temptation is to throw out a name just to be a joke, but
right. So you have Elon Musk, right? He's ultra successful. There's elements of him where I think you're a dickhead.
I think ruining Twitter might go some way to proving that point, but sure.
Yeah, like I think you have to have some level of like, I don't want to say sociopath, but you have to sort of disregard other people. I think to be like a trillionaire. I feel like.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the reasons why I would argue that you're a philosophy student, obviously. I have existential thoughts on the nature of capitalism and our society in the West, and one of the things I think should be seriously looked at is you have to make it illegal for these motherfuckers to just earn whatever they want to earn, because unfortunately there are people who are exceptionally good at it. And that's fine, except for the economy is not an infinite resource. It is a finite pool of debt and time and money that cycles. And the less it cycles, the more it hurts everybody. And I get that we have a fascination with that success. We all want to be it. We all want to be a trillionaire. We all want to have everything. Yeah, except for that's... You think that's all just coming from some random nebulous place, you know what I mean?
But it'll always be the same, though, because of how we're socially conditioned to aim for that. Like, we're all socially conditioned to want to be that guy who has the trillion pound and is on a yacht.
We are.
But and like, if you look at it deeper, again, for philosophy student shit coming in, that shouldn't be the goal of life, because currency is a very man-made entity. We don't need it. We want it. And all it is, it's I think in the modern day now, and you see it more and more as currency becomes digital, it's just different things, different barriers that are added in the way, and it makes it more like, I'm going to chase that even more now because it seems more accessible. I can do it from my house on my laptop. I think we have the wrong goals because of how we're socially conditioned.
I completely agree with you, and the notion of currency and wealth is something that I bring up with younger people, because it's a fun exercise to think what they think they're going to need. Like if I said, here's a blank check, write any number you want on it, but it has to last you for the rest of your life, and you hear some of the numbers and you go, can I ask you a question? What would be a good wage to be on right now? Okay, cool, times that by 60, right? That's the number that you're saying that you think you'd be more than happy to earn for the rest of your life. Do you see the difference in those two numbers? Like, but that's like you said, that's what they've been conditioned to believe, is like, man, what colour's your Bugatti? Like, who says I fucking want one? Like, I'm cool with my Astra, brother. I'm good.
I think, and this is I'm like, I'll say it a million times. I hate the generation I come from, because I feel like we're so easily like, we ignore character flaws based on this guy has something that I want as well. And it's like, yeah, he has something that you want as well, but you don't have to adopt all the other character flaws that this dickhead has. You don't. You really don't.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
It's true. It's like, and you're obviously talking about Andrew Tate. It's like, I think most people would want a Bugatti, right? It'd be a pretty cool thing to show off. But at the same time, I'm not going to do all the other things the man's done. I'm not going to defend him. So I don't get this thing of we see someone successful and then we want to defend everything they do because they're successful. I don't get that. That makes no sense to me.
It makes perfect sense through the prism of it. It makes that then a viable path. It also means that the chance, it's how lotteries work. I don't care how statistically insignificant your chances of winning are. You're saying there's a chance. And that's all some people... And look, ultimately that's sexier than saying to someone, well, with enough graft, with enough passion, with enough perseverance, and also the ability to take a few failures, you might end up in a position one day. Now, it might not be ultimately the success that you want it to be, but it could be something. That's... How are you going to say that to a generation of people that are used to being told over and over again, just aim for the stars. Don't take no for an answer. Like, well, no, but there's a few steps you're missing there.
I feel like me personally, I think I'm self-aware enough to know if I ever had a stupid amount of money, I'd do dumb shit. I would do stupid shit. I cannot guarantee you that I would be intelligent with that currency. I think you see it in rich people. They do things that make no sense and are stupid. Like recently, and obviously tragic, we had the submarine Titanic thing. It's like, this is what happens when you give people who have too much money than what they know what to do with free roam. This is what happens. And that's how I viewed it anyway. It's probably quite a dark and cynical way to look at it, but I feel like it's probably accurate.
No doubt in my mind about that. I'm acutely aware that I did warn you at the beginning of this podcast that the darkness would hit, and it is now exceptionally dark outside because we've been going for 3 hours. Are you aware of that? 3 whole hours we've just ticked over. So I think we covered a lot. So one last thing I want to make sure, because young man, you were hard to research because DubTee apparently is also a very popular name of a influencer from India, I think, or Pakistan.
Yeah, that's my biggest influence. I can't lie.
Well, I need to make sure people know where to find you and how they can support you, because I did manage it, but it wasn't the easiest, and I want to make things a little bit easier if I can take anything away or contribute anything to your very, very promising career. So the first question I have is, where can people find you, and where can people support you, and most importantly, what have you got coming up that you want people to be aware of?
So, I think the best place to find me is probably on Twitter.
What's Twitter?
X. On X.
In the same way, I won't answer when someone says Gunther. It's Walter. It's always going to be Twitter for me. If you call it X, I won't respond to you. So you're fine. I just thought I'd be a snarky asshole for a second, but okay, they can find you on Twitter.
Right. So yeah, you can find me on X as right. You can find me on Twitter as DubTee CV UK. Capitals on the D, the T, and the CV UK. It's all one word though. Yeah, my Instagram is a lot harder to find. I wouldn't even follow my Instagram. It's pointless. I don't use it. So just the place to find me. Yeah, I'm hopefully gonna have a mixtape coming out in the next few months. Work on that. Yeah, that's about it. To be honest.
Sorry, that will not stand. Bear with me. I have you on Instagram now because I'm one of these old fogies that didn't understand what Instagram was up until about 6 months ago, something like that. I did follow you though.
It's like Dubs_T 1507 or something like that. It's something like that, but it's something, not.
What do you mean something? It either is or it isn't. What is it? Yes, so it's Dubs DUBZ _TTEE 1507. Come on now.
Yeah, but I'm a massive hater of most social media. To be honest, I just don't like it. I think I don't like false pretenses. And I feel like they're just massive false pretenses.
But how else am I supposed to mine all your data to then use to sell stuff to you?
The amount of times I've been talking around my phone and then I've been recommended the thing, it's scary. I was talking to someone yesterday about how Michael Bisping lost his eye. And then the first thing on my recommended on YouTube, Michael Bisping, how he fought with one eye. This is terrifying shit. Right, anyway.
It's terrifying, but I'm afraid it's not true. Otherwise, how do you explain that hentai is always recommended on my phone?
Don't be talking about hentai around my phone. Like
Oh, is the mic? Wait, is your phone within earshot right now?
Well, it's there. So yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. I'll take that as my personal victory. But that's cool. Okay. Sorry, I couldn't help. If anyone listens to this now in earshot of their phone and hentai is recommended,
just quickly, hentai.
It's just, I'm sorry, that's just objectively funny to me. I'm sorry. This is just one of those things. And as far as upcoming events, battles, okay, pie in the sky stuff, like who are some of the people that you would want to have your name mentioned in conversation with in terms of battles going forward? Like who do you want to battle, or who do you think would be a good matchup for you?
I'd like to battle Benny P next. I feel like that'd be a good step up, but when that will happen, I don't know. Probably December time, I imagine. I'd want whoever it is. I'd want it in December. I could have had a very big battle in September, but I'm just too busy. So, yeah.
This has been one of my most interesting interviews. I think you've given some insight and some real valuable perspective on the scene, not only as someone that's a fan but now a participant, but as someone that's going to be a guiding light for the future. So thank you for that, and thank you for doing it. You don't know how hot it is today, honestly, guys. It is so fucking sweltering. I swear to God, I'm surprised my equipment didn't melt throughout the fucking process of recording this podcast, because it is too fucking hot.
It's bad.
So thank you for 3 hours as well, staying the course and sitting that through. So thank you so much. And listen, here's to what is going to be, not if it's going to be, when it's going to be, a very promising career. And I will be watching with keen interest. And what I want is a commitment from you right now that the next time me and you speak properly on a platform like this, it's very much I'm chasing you for your time. I want to hear that. I'm really sorry, Lorne, but my schedule is exceptionally busy now because I'm a big fucking deal.
I'll always make time for this. This is fun. And next time we talk, we should be at a battle event. You should come and watch me in my next one. It probably wherever that will be. Maybe not Manchester because it's a long way for you to go. But if there's a London event, come down and watch.
I'll make a point of it. But in the meantime, DubTee, that was an interview that happened, and I appreciate it. Thank you for the time, man.
Nah, thank you for having me.